Welcome to another episode of the Strange Motion Way podcast. I'm your host, Tim Strange, along with my first and current wife.
Your future wife is what you almost
That
said.
future wife.
Very strange.
Tonight, we have a good friend of ours. We've had a lot of our good friends on here. Now, this is probably the longest intro of anybody that I've got, and I know I missed a lot of stuff. He started out in the BMX world. He's in the Nebraska BMX Hall of Fame. He helps run the Nebraska BMX Hall of Fame. We'll talk about that. He worked for ABA BMX, which is now USA BMX, at a very young age, which seems like, I mean, he I don't know how old he is now, but he looks younger than I do now. So I'm going to say at 12 years old, maybe he started at USA ABA, and he worked up. He was the editor of Bicycles and Dirt magazine. Uh, and he worked in some major parts of the industry, what I call in the heydays. I think he worked for a snowboard company, I believe, when the snowboards kind of started. I could be wrong on that. And at the beginning of the big craze of Vision Streetwear, which was a huge shoe and clothing company back in the 80s, which it's kind of back now. It's not as cool as it was when he was there, and brought big money sponsorship into the BMX world. He worked for the great Boyd Coddington, Hot Rods by Boyd. I believe he was vice president, and through the time when they had like 300 employees, when we had Chris Coddington on here of the wheel company. He was there when they went public on the stock market. We'll touch on that. Helped start Shop Rags Clothing there. Went on to run Bond Speed Wheels, which he still does, which we've used quite a few sets of wheels on cars we've debuted at the SEMA show. Bond Speed watches. I have a watch. Kind of wore that one out. It's not the high dollar one, but yeah. Who else does watches too? I mean, and Bond Speed Clothing, which he just brought back. He does Shift Steer Media, which I want to say he's got one of the longest running automotive podcasts. There can't be much more that have been consistently long with him. And I'm blank on the one guy's name, and our good friend Aaron Hagar. I think he does a handful of other ones. He does a BMX podcast. He did Car Warriors TV, Car Chasers on MSNBC. He's built quite a few cars that debuted at the SEMA show for GM and Ford, and won design awards for both companies. He used to have, I'm going to say, the second coolest SEMA party. Hard to beat the Kicker Big Airbag, right? Hard to beat that. And actually, we met a lot of good friends there. That was the first night we actually hung out and visited with our good friend, our highest listened podcast from last year, Larry Dixon. I got to know Larry that night and been great friends ever since. Welcome tonight. That is a mouthful, Brad Fanshaw.
Hey, thanks. Hi, Tim. Hi, Carrie.
Yeah, you're like, oh, I forgot I did that. I forgot I did that. Yeah.
I think Tim used the Google.
Brad is the only our third guest that has a Wikipedia. I got on the Wikipedia.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know where that came from. That's one of those weird things. They spring up and you don't even know where they come from, And
yeah.
And one time I went on there to try and modify a few things and I couldn't figure it out, so I just left it the way it was. So
no.
But
believe what they want to believe.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it's great to have you. Absolutely.
Thanks. No, it's fun. I'm glad you guys asked me to be on. It's always good. It's always weird to talk about yourself when you hear stuff like that, especially you just kind of go, But
but you do so many podcasts, and like you do the Shift and Steer. We jump around and go out of order a little bit. How many years you've been doing the Shift and Steer one?
12 years. We just put episode 550 in the can this week, and you were right. We were the very first automotive podcast. How that got to be was, I know Adam Carolla, he's a pal, and Matt D'Andrea, who's on my show, he was working for Adam back then, and he was like a production guy, and so I was on Adam's show, and it was right after Adam had left. Remember he took over for God, I can't think of his name. Hate getting old. The guy Howard Stern. When Howard Stern went off the air, they hired Adam Carolla to take it. And he did it for a couple of years, and then he went and he started a podcast when nobody even knew what a podcast was, you know? And so I was on his show. We did this where he would have CarCast back then was where he would have somebody bring a car to the studio. You'd do an interview, then you'd walk outside and walk around your car. And so I did that.
It's a little bit like Leno does now. Leno has people bring cars to his shop and
exactly. And this was years ago. So we did that, and I was talking. I go, so where does this air? And he goes, I'll tell you all about it. He goes, I will help you get one started if you want. And I said, I want to do one because at the time, Tim, you were on it. I used to do the radio show, which was Rod and Custom Radio, and it was syndicated. We were in like 80 markets, but the problem was if you weren't in front of your radio between 10 and 11 on a Saturday morning, you didn't ever hear it. And where are car guys on Saturday mornings? If they're not at a kid's soccer game or doing they're at a car show, Cars and Coffee or something. So I was like, so these things, they can listen to them whenever they want. And he filled me all in. And then he put me in touch with his one production guy, Chris. And he showed me, okay, you do this, do this, do this. Kind of like plug and play so that I could do it. Then I went back to him and I said, hey, how would you feel about being on my show with me? And he was like, nah, I can't do that. But Matt will be on it. And and so Matt and I talked in, and so I talked to Matt about being on it. Then I saw Aaron at a band event, and I hadn't seen Aaron for, maybe 6 months. And we were talking hot rods and everything like that. And we started talking about podcasts. And I said, yeah, I'm doing a new one. And after talking to Aaron, I went, this would be perfect. And I don't mean this in a bad way, but where Matt was the perfect guy because he had the inside line and got all the press cars, and was always driving some new press car every week. He could come from that angle. I'm the hot rod muscle car guy. Well, Aaron was a rat rod guy, but he didn't know jack about anything. And I was like, that's perfect because I've been around it so long that I take it for granted. So he would ask some of the questions that the average listener might ask, and that was great.
Some of you don't know, it's Aaron Hagar. And yes, he is Sammy Hagar's son. And we've spent a week on a Caribbean cruise with Aaron when we did the cruises with O'Reilly and Von Hot Rod. And they'd always have another guest come on. Like one year, me and Vaughn brought Rob Ida on. One year we brought Aaron. Aaron's wife didn't come, but we rode around Costa Rica on bikes all day with Aaron, and he is it took us all week to get him to sing karaoke. The very last night, he finally sang karaoke, and he sang Bryan Adams' Girls of Summer or something like that. Yeah.
I believe that. And he's got a great voice, but he didn't.
Aaron is such an awesome, fun guy. He is
he's a fun guy. And that's why I knew it would work. But then I had to go back to my partner in crime. And that was Pete Shaporis, because I had brought him on in the latter part of doing Rod and Custom Radio. And I said, and I went back to him, I go, hey, Pete, I said, we're not going to do the radio show anymore. And he goes, what do you mean? And I go, we're going to do a podcast. And I said, it's this. I explained it all to him, what a podcast was. And he goes, and this was just how Pete was. He goes, okay, boss, if you think it's the right thing to do, then we're doing it. And I said, well, there's one other thing. And he goes, what's that? And I said, we're adding 2 other guys to the show. And he was so, Pete was so cool. He just went, hey, if you think it's the greatest thing, let's do it. And it worked out great because we had old school Pete and his knowledge and his history and everything there. And then my background in hot rods and muscle cars. But then we had new car Matt and we had rat rod Aaron. And it just worked out great. It worked out great.
And Pete was on your podcast pretty much up until he passed away, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's a real bad thing. Pete's, the anniversary of his death was just 2 days ago, I believe.
Yeah.
And
which will be about a month once this goes up, a few weeks, months or something.
And it's always a tough one because Pete literally called me the night before at home, and he said, he used to call me boss, and he said, "Hey, boss, you know how much I love our Fridays because we always recorded on Friday." And he would come by, and then we'd go to lunch or something, and he goes, "I'm just not feeling up to it." And I said, "Hey, Pete," I said, "We'll do it without you, but we'll get you back on." And that was it. We found out the next day that he'd passed. So
we had the Beasy brothers on here about a month ago, and they're used to work for
yeah.
Pete, so we talked 40 minutes about them working for Pete back then, and they're in the old SoCal building still.
Anybody, yeah, exactly, they are. And anybody who's listening, who's into hot rods or muscle cars, custom trucks, I don't care what it is. If you never got to meet Pete Shaporis, then you missed out on a huge chunk of hot rodding because he was such a great guy and such an original guy and authentic. And as my wife always says, what a gentleman. So,
and I don't mean this any bad, but when he passed away, he was a little older than I thought that he was.
He was a young looking guy for his age. Yes.
He was almost like our version of Dick Clark, America's teenager.
Yes.
That was Pete Shaporis for our hot rod world. And that's, I'm a big music fan, so that's a huge compliment for me to say, but he kind of was.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah.
But the good part about that is now people can still go back and they can listen to those episodes and they can get a little bit of who he was and his character because of what you did.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And that's why we started doing this, and we get some of these guests that they don't know what a podcast is. Some of these guys in their 90s have to have their neighbor put them in front of a computer, but we have to get these guys stories, why we still can. I mean, unfortunately, we've lost a few of the people that we've recorded in the last few years doing this. So.
Exactly. That's what's hard. I wish I had all my episodes of Rod and Custom Radio, but I did that through a network, and they got them, and I don't have any of them. That kind of blows, But
the only person I know still kind of does that hot rod radio. I think there's a couple other syndicated ones, but Wings Callahan still does.
Does he still do his?
It's not a car show, but he puts together some oldies, and it's like an hour-long syndicated, and it goes around, what's he's in, 15...
Yeah, I think so.
What do they call it? Districts or
markets?
Markets.
Markets, yeah.
Yep.
So that's cool. But yeah, so that's how we got started. And our very first show that we debuted at SEMA, we had, a huge show. It was packed. We broke it into 3 days, did it twice a day, live in front of an audience. And we had Guy Fieri, we had Billy Gibbons, we had, builders, racers. It was really fun. And people, but as you said, Tim, people were like, "So where's this going to air? What channel?" And we're like, "No, it's a podcast." What's a podcast?
She does that little advertisement, little things on our, social media, still explaining what a podcast is. Like, I had a guy that is like my age, and he's like, "Oh man, I seen you got Brizio. I missed it." And I'm like, you can still just go whatever platform you listen on, just scroll back until you find Brizio, or you can search Brad Fanshaw. And, as long as we put them on 7 platforms, as long as them platforms are still up, it's up there.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's shift and steer that we do. And then I also do with Dave Merrick, who you guys know. Dave Merrick, till January 1st, he was the head of global design at Honda and Acura. But he's gone. He retired on the 1st. And he was just here at my office today. And we were talking about what's next. We got plans together. We're going to do some stuff, really cool, fun
run
stuff.
Into him someplace. Of course, it's SEMA or the Roadster. Last year, you guys were on the design thing for the SEMA at the HRI thing, and he's a riot. Like,
he's awesome.
Comedian. He is, and his man. I knew who he was, but didn't know. I don't listen to all the podcasts, and like all the things that he's been a part of is incredible.
Huge.
I think I ran into him at PRI, and I'm like, "Hey man, big fan. You know who I am?" He always says, "You got me the wrong person," or something like that. And I was like, "Oh, I'm friends with Brad Fanshaw." Yeah.
When we're at the Long Beach Grand Prix and we're walking through the pits, And all of a sudden we hear, hey, Dave, and we turn around and I go, and Dave goes, oh, hey, how you doing, Roger? And it's Roger Penske. Yeah. And then we're walking a few more feet and it's Bobby Rahal. Hey, Dave, how you doing? I'm like, you're the man, when we're at the racetrack, you're the guy,
Yeah.
But so we do Man Seeks Adventure. And the way Man Seeks Adventure got started was with my watch company. I was traveling to Hong Kong. I was traveling to mainland China. I was going to Switzerland, like once a month, and going other places in the Middle East and Europe. And because we were my Bonneville watch line was the official watch of the Saudi royal family. And so we were doing all kinds of stuff. And Dave and I'd get together for a beer or something, and we would be talking about, he'd go, oh, I got to go over to Zurich. Where should I go? And I go, oh, this is a cool place. And I'd go, hey, I'm going back to Tokyo. Where's a good place? And we started talking about stuff like that. And we went, this would be a good show. Because we were talking about not just what bar, but we'd talk about where to eat. We'd talk about traveling. We'd talk about this, that, and throw in car stuff. And we thought this would be a good show. And that's how Man Seeks Adventure got born. And, what our dream has always been with Man Seeks Adventure, we've done a little bit of it, is actually do travels. More like one weekend we went to St. Louis, and remember the year at SEMA when I helped put together to have Billy and Michael and everybody play at the banquet? Billy and Michael asked me to fly into St. Louis to help put together the set list for that. And so they were playing a big thing together. Sammy and Michael were playing. ZZ Top was playing. It was a co-headliner. And so I went backstage, took Dave with me. We sat down. We went over, created the set list for the SEMA show, and got everybody to agree on what songs and everything so they could rehearse and get ready. Well, then we went to the concert, went backstage. We go, this is a Man Seeks Adventure if there ever was one.
Right.
Then the next day, it just so happens the same weekend, NHRA drag races were in town. So we went out and saw all our buddies out at the racetrack. And at nights, we would go to different bars and restaurants and places like that. And in the mornings, go to breakfast. And it just all became videoed Man Seeks adventures,
I know I don't have to tell you because you've probably already done this with all your connections in the TV world, but that needs to be a TV show.
That's what we've always thought. But one of the problems has been, until now, Dave has been so busy. I mean, literally, people don't realize.
Well, now you know what he can do in his retirement.
Well, that's what we're talking about, because Dave, people don't realize Dave, almost everything at Honda went past his desk. For a final approval on the design and the look and the DNA of what it was. But for pre-pandemic, Dave had an office in Tokyo and an office here in LA, and every other week he flew to Tokyo. And there were times when he would call me and he'd go, yeah, I can't do the show this week. And I'd go, why? What's going on? He goes, well, I just got off the plane last night. Well, something happened. Now I got to get on a plane this morning and head back to Tokyo. I mean, the guy was...
Okay, I'm going to bribe you. So you didn't know there's a fee. There's some like an Indian trade for you being on the podcast. You got to get him lined up. So I would love to interview him.
Oh, yeah. No, he'd love to. He'd love to. Yeah. He's fun. You just got to keep him in a direction. Met him,
but you see him, you'll be like, oh, I've seen that guy. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd know him. Yeah. And one of the other things for our audience here, Dave just got himself a 32 Roadster for his retirement, and we were talking about what to do with it today, and we decided, I almost said it. I almost said what you told me not to say. We almost said, screw it, and leave it alone, because it's totally drivable. It's got a small block Chevy. And I told him, I said, it's faded red. It's all patinaed. And I said, it reminds me of Gray Baskerville's car. And I said, and there's nothing cooler than that to be driving around LA in. Yeah. And so we decided it stays the way it is,
Yeah, cool.
So,
very cool.
But, and then...
while we're talking podcast, you do a BMX one.
Yes, Super Rad BMX with Tim Lilthorpe.
Yep.
And that one, we haven't been laying down as many shows as I would like to, just because Tim owns an advertising agency and he's going on location a lot. He does a lot of video. And
I see him every year at the last 3 years. They've hired me to do the red carpet interviews for the BMX Hall of Fame there in Tulsa. And Cash Matthews. So this is new news right here. I haven't posted about it. I might before this goes up. But Cash Matthews, a Hall of Famer from like the 70s, because he's like a business guy. So he's the suit and tie. I do the red carpet, then I do the intros, and I throw it to Cash. Then he does the formal part of the rest of it. So he retired last year.
I heard he was going to do that. Yeah.
The board just signed me up. I'm the main host for the Hall of Fame in Tulsa for the BMX.
Congratulations. That's cool.
So, yeah, I know there was a few other people were wanting it, and Jason Richardson was wanting it, and a couple other people, but I've done good with them. And, the BMX, they do flow cycling coverage online now for their second year next year. And it looks like I might be doing 6 or 7 events.
Doing all the color commentary?
Yeah, just for the pro races and the UCI stuff in the U.S. and most of the events, all the events this year, I worked with the gold medalist from Vegas, Connor Fields.
Yeah.
So Connor talks to the World Cup guys. Tell me about your protein intake, and I'm talking to the guy that's the cool jumper that still fast. I'm going to talk to this guy, yeah, and so got to do the 2-hour live show with Eric Grindle. For the amateur title chase for the Grands. So yeah, that's why we've been buddies for so long, because we have that whole BMX and hot rod thing. There's a lot of guys in the industry our age that way too.
There is, and it goes back, and I don't want to jump around or lose place, but I remember when I was the vice president of the ABA way back when, and running the races and stuff, how many race drivers were out there with their kids. The Mears brothers. And I mean, I can go on and on. Or some guy'd show up and he'd have remember those jackets they used to give out from Hot Rod magazine? If you got on a cover, had a big number 1 and said Hot Rod. And there were a couple of those guys that showed up all the time, and drag boat racers. And it's just that that symbiosis of racing, it's like, hey man, if you're racing this, you're going to be racing that, and
so, and like another good BMX friend of ours in the industry, Steve Strope, which he does the Car Guy Confessions podcast. He was just on like this last month with the MagnaFlow podcast, and they cut that up, and he went on a rant about exactly what we're talking. I am not exaggerating. I had that clip sent to me on Instagram privately at least 30 times. From, did you see this?
I know, I did too. A bunch of people sent it to me.
I mean, I was sharing it and everything too, and it's like, Strope's got an amazing collection. Like,
and I'm like, Steve and I have had that to the word conversation many, many times about how BMX was the gateway drug. And but that's cool. I mean, that's cool, because Steve's so enthusiastic about it, and in fact,
he gets more enthusiastic about his BMX restoration builds when I was at the shop than he does the car stuff, I think. But he knows I'm his people. I understand the BMX.
That is him. You nailed it, because when we did the BMX Hall of Fame this year in Nebraska, Steve called me and he goes, "Hey, I know that you're involved in that, and you're kind of one of the persons putting it together, and you helped put it together for the museum and everything." And he goes, I got my bikes that I've put in there. And I go, yeah, no, I know you got a whole bunch of bikes. He goes, well, I want to come back for that. Can you take care of me? I go, yeah. I said, come on back. I said, we'll put you in. I said, in fact, I'll bring you up on stage and talk about how a lot of the bikes from your collection are in the museum. And I said, but you do realize when that is, it's just 2 weeks before SEMA, Steve. I said, you got 2 cars that you're bringing to SEMA. And he goes, yeah, I know. He goes, it's crazy. I shouldn't be doing it. He goes, I got a lot to get done. He goes, but it's BMX stuff, man. And that means a lot to me. And I'm like, okay, whatever.
I tried to come. I wanted, because we put on the Starbird Rod and Custom Car Hall of Fame there. And that was our first time going there. That place is amazing. And,
that was your first time there?
It was my first time going there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But we went a day early. So
almost 2 days early. Yeah.
Day. Yeah. Just to do, that's all we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we're talking about the Museum of American Speed in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. So they have great bigger than I expected BMX display in there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's really
And they're
awesome.
going to expand it again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because the curator, Tim Matthews, was a BMXer.
Yes.
He started putting his BMX bikes in there and got a lot of response. Then, so they've grown, and he keeps wanting my stuff because, like Hot Rod Hall of Famer, here's his BMX bikes. And I'm like, man, I don't know. I'll loan you a car before I'll loan you my bike. I still look at them in the garage in there, and I still take them to some vintage events, but they are probably getting my BMX collection eventually. So
yeah, I've put some stuff in there, and it's safe and secure and beautiful, and they want to expand it even more. And one of the reasons is, a lot of people, not to get too far into the minutia here, but it's like the economic development of Lincoln, Nebraska, and the state. Museums like that, they get funding. Well, that BMX area, with our Hall of Fame and some of the other stuff that's been done with the BMX, it's actually showing to bring in more money than some of the other stuff. And the state and the city are excited about it. So they want to do more, but they love the way there's that cross transition. And that's what they want to do, Tim. What you just said, they want to do more. They've got that wall that's got some photos of you, some photos of me, some, a photo of Chip, a photo of
Daryl Hollenbeck. There's a picture of Daryl up there. And there's a few.
It's hot
Eric
rods
Geiser.
and BMX, but they want to take it beyond more than just a photo wall. They want to show some of the actual stuff we have and collect and customized and things like that, which is cool because it just shows what's going on there. But
Gork, that is the curator at the
USA
BMX Hall of Fame Museum, and he worked for BMX Action and Redline, and he's in the Hall of Fame twice actually because he worked for Freestyle and Magazine too, and he's had a thing that they have on the wall for like race people. And I've talked to him that eventually he's going to do another display for the hot rod world people that came from BMX. So like Cruz Pedregon's on the little wall, and a couple NASCAR drivers and stuff like that. So it's they acknowledge people what they went on to do when they got their fix from the racing as a kid.
Right.
So, yeah, very cool.
Well, one of these days maybe they've already got all the super all the people from BMX Plus and all the people from BMX Action. Maybe one of the days they'll put their own guys in, to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. I need to nominate you. Yeah.
There you go.
I know Daryl Hollenbeck. He's in all these Rock and Custom Hall of Fames. He's probably in 5, 6 Hall of Fames, and he's on the wall in there because he was an amazing rider. Factory Panda. His mom was a team manager. They stickered frames in his kitchen table, and he goes, that's the Hall of Fame I want to be in. But he quit like when he was 12. But they put out a list here at the end of the year of the people that have been nominated, and he's actually been nominated at least once. And he was so excited. He's like, "Oh my God, I was nominated at least." Kind of
cool.
most Hall of Fames for the BMX, you kind of have a career in pro, but he never got that far. But maybe he'll get in there someday. It'd be pretty cool.
Well, it's funny because
So now let's get started on the podcast where we're using.
we're just. I thought we were just chatting. No, go ahead. What?
We've been recording.
Hit me up, man. Hit me up.
Yeah. So let's go back. I know you're a Midwest boy. You grew up in Nebraska. So talk about growing up in Nebraska. Obviously, you BMX raced, and how you got the car bug as a little kid.
Well, actually, just to set it straight, I kind of call Scottsdale, Arizona, and Omaha, Nebraska, home, because my dad was an executive with Sony and Sharp when they first came to America, and helped them get established. And we always had a house in Scottsdale. And then we would move somewhere. He'd hire all the people, then we move back to Scottsdale. Then we'd move somewhere. So I've lived in Denver, Albuquerque, San Diego. All over the place.
Almost like being a military kid.
That's what everybody thought, yeah. But the reason everybody thinks of Nebraska is because that was high school and college. And, cars and BMX were huge at the time. And I was living in San Diego, and I was I was racing for a place called Santee Cyclery. I was being considered by Wills and Things, and I was racing with Eddie King, and I rode side hacks with Scott Bryhop, and we rode like Rancho San Diego, Bike
So
Shop El
speaking of
Cajon.
Scott Ryhop,
What's
our
that?
good friend, speaking of Scott that started SE,
Yeah.
godfather of BMX, our good friend that does videos and documentaries and does stuff for the Sphere in Vegas, he has letters when Scott was in jail the last time
Okay.
because he was working on a script to do the history of
Oh.
BMX through like a Hollywood movie, kind of like they did Dogtown,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And even though Scott's passed away, he's still in touch with Scott's family
Yeah.
and has letters, and like there's been a script written in there. If they could get money behind it, it could be made because Sean has. They just need some. Like they kind of pitched it. It was almost going to be a Netflix movie, but then they realized there's so much story in the
Yeah.
BMX stuff that it should be like an 8 episodes miniseries on Netflix. So that's kind of maybe going to happen. So that's pretty rad.
Scott's story, for people that know it, it's, I mean, man, from getting it started and being that promoter up through the problems with cocaine and then into harder drugs. But in between there were so many flashes of brilliance with the guy. I mean, you know, if you look back in music industry, I'm trying to remember, was it Casablanca? But he invested some of his money early on, and I think Casablanca with Eddie Rabbit, who was big back in the day, and you know, things went sideways, and he blew all his money, and you know, it's just a crazy. It's one of those California stories, you know, and I mean, at Vision, you know, I raced with him when I was real young. I was the, you know, I was the monkey on the side hack, and then rode for SE for a while, and then later on, you know, with Vision, we did lots of stuff with him. We did, you know, the tramway gravity powered vehicle races, and we did, I mean, all kinds of stuff, you know, crazy videos. And he was a commentator for us on lots of our video productions and stuff. So yeah, really cool. But back to that. So I was racing in San Diego with anybody you think of back in the day, you know, Stu Thompson and Perry Kramer and,
that's
you know,
the
all the guys.
That's all the, that's where all the Hall of Famers were.
Yeah.
I mean, guys that stuck with it. Yeah.
And so I've known these guys forever. And like Bob Harrow and I have been friends forever. And then one day my dad comes home and he goes, "Oh, we're moving," which was usual, you know. And I go, "Where are we going?" "Omaha." I go, "Oh, where's that?" You know, "Omaha, Nebraska." And so we moved back there in February. So I'm literally like skateboarding, BMXing, and surfing one weekend, next weekend freezing my tail off. And I get back there.
How old were you when you moved to Nebraska?
I'm going to say like maybe 13.
Okay.
Yeah. And
how old are you now?
I'm 14.
Okay, I'm 12 mentally.
No, I'm now in my 60s. So
okay.
It's
but
my dad was so cool that he knew that, you know, this was a big move and a big change, and so when it kind of thawed out and things were going, and I get the BMX bike out and stuff like that, there was no place to go, you know, and I'm riding around, just going to the park, doing stuff. And then one day I was riding down a street in my neighborhood, and some kids had a wood ramp set up, and it was Tim Littlethorpe and some other guys.
Oh, wow.
And I was just sitting there. They're on like shock bikes, like Graco monoshocks. I mean, Graco shock bikes and Yamaha motorbikes. And I'm sitting there on
this would have been late 70s then if they were on shock bikes.
Like mid 70s, like I'm going to say like 77 or something like that. Okay. And we, I'm just sitting over there because I don't know these guys, and I'm thinking, man, I want to hit that ramp. And I'm on a Mongoose with redline forks and Motomag front and a 120 gauge in the back. And
that stuff hadn't even made it to Nebraska yet from California.
They had no clue. And they told me later on they thought I was some other kid from down the street and had modified my bike or something. And I come riding up and I go, hey, do you mind if I hit your ramp? And they're like, kind of giggling, like, yeah, right. You don't have any shocks. You don't have nothing. And I go, yeah. And they didn't know how to bunny hop. They didn't know how to, do any of that. And I hit the ramp bunny hop and they're like, what the heck, And so we became fast friends. And later in that year, in that summer, my dad and Tim's dad got together with the local bike shop and got the first BMX track started.
Oh,
and
wow. They have a great track in Omaha now.
Yeah, everything progressed really fast. One kind of started simultaneously, got open a little bit sooner in Lincoln, but then we got the first one in Omaha started, and then later in that year we went on summer tour. These guys went from shock bikes to other stuff really fast. I think Tim had a Webco and Chris had a Red Line, and we went out on summer tour and got there, and I knew everybody, because it was Haro and Thompson and go down the list, and they're all in their vans going across the country, and we're racing the Pattersons. And one distinct story I remember is we were in St. Louis, and it was so hot and so humid, and Tim's dad took us in his Winnebago, and the Pattersons had this big motor coach. I mean, like really state of the art for the day, and had 2 air conditioners on the top. And I'll never forget being there. We had to sleep outside in our sleeping bags, and there were so many mosquitoes that we would zip them up, pull them over our heads, and sweat all night because. And all I remember hearing is those air conditioners going, and in the morning, those guys coming out going, yeah, we got a good night's rest, and I'm sitting there going, yeah, we didn't, And
there's a story that Brian Patterson told on the Dirty Knobs podcast that they were someplace in, I don't know if it was a van or maybe it was our RV, but they blew their motor up.
Oh, really?
In the middle of the summer tour, and his dad's like, "Well, I'm going to teach you guys the grown-up lesson. You got to win because you got to pay for the motor." And of course, they won. Yeah.
But so I moved to Omaha. We got the track started, and raced for a number of years. I went back to California, raced, did some pro racing out there. And then Tim and Chris and Chris Hayden, we all raced pro around the Midwest, the Rondo Cup, all that stuff. And then I got the car bug. I got the car bug hard.
Gary has a question. That'd be your question. School. Because he was in and out of all these schools.
Yeah. So being in and out of schools and moving a lot, what kind of student were you?
I was on the dean's list most of the time. And
does dean stand for D?
Because I think this is the first person.
Yeah, this is the first one of our almost 100 that I was an excellent student.
Yeah. No, I wasn't a bad student, but I wasn't a great student. I was a little teeny bit above average. It was one of those things that half the time when you come into a new school, it's like, okay, you got to learn the ropes, man. What guards are the good guards, and are you going to get shanked? And no, but I mean, but I will say what I did learn from doing that, living in different states, living and going to school in different states and like that, I really learned about people and about personalities and kind of getting along with people, and also how different it is. You visit somewhere, you're there a week, and then you leave. But if you actually live there, you learn a lot more about it.
Yeah,
and that part was good.
Yeah.
My brother and sister had it worse because they were 7 and 8 years older than me. So they were already in high school and stuff when all this was happening, and it was really hard for them.
Yeah.
Did you ever do any school sports, or was it all just BMX?
I ran track and field. I tried football, but I wasn't a real good team player.
That's why BMX was good for people.
That's why BMX was good, man. It was...
any of these schools, when you got into high school, did you have any auto programs?
One did, yeah. My high school, I went to the same high school the whole time. That was good. By the time we got there, we were settled in.
And where did you graduate high school?
What's that?
Did you graduate high school in Nebraska?
In Nebraska, yeah.
Okay.
And so that school, the school I went to, did not have an automotive program, but you could sign up for night school at Tech. And so I drove like on, I think it was like Monday and Wednesday nights, and went to Tech High School for a night school program where I mean, back then they were teaching us how to lead. They were teaching, I mean, you'd never find that now. We learn how to weld, how to lead fenders, how to do. And what was so cool was we could bring our own stuff. So like I was restoring my 67 Chevelle, and I could bring my fenders in and lead the rust and all that. And you'd have an instructor.
And we'll talk about that. Is that still the Chevelle you still own today?
Yes.
Cool.
That's cool. Very first car I ever got, I bought it in Grinnell, Iowa from the original owner. And I've never got.
My buddy Randy bought his Nova from Grinnell, Iowa. Yeah.
Yep. And still have it.
It's a 67?
67 SS 396.
And I did see a post here recently that you're going to get back on that and get it back rolling again.
My goal this year is to get it going. Yeah. It's
Pro Street, isn't it?
Well, I am kind of glad I didn't Pro Street it, because I did take the body off the frame. I had the tubs made. I had the rear end narrowed, everything. And I had 1515 weld wheels and then I got off it and got onto other projects and stuff like that. And now I'm kind of glad I didn't do it, because I've got a whole nother idea of what I want to do. I want to make it more, if we would have had the technology we have today back in the 80s, and make, it's still going to be Pro Street. It's not going to be Pro Touring. It's not going to be Pro Street. It's kind of going to be a hybrid. So.
Okay. Then you had I know we're out of order, but you had another Chevelle that you sold a project once.
66.
Yeah, because I tried real hard to get it. That was a bitchin' project. I tried to get a customer to buy that once. And
that was a nice car, and unfortunately, it burnt to the ground.
Oh man!
The guy I sold it to, if you remember that F-150 with the 32 valve Roush motor, the GT motor that I built. Do you remember that one? Mm-hmm. He bought that. Then when I put up the 66 Chevelle, he bought that, and he had it up in his car. He had a huge car, like 64 car collection up in Canada, and it burnt to the ground. He lost everything. Baldwin cars, man. All kinds of stuff. Yeah. No, man. Really bad.
But, okay, so we go back again. Mm-hmm. So you got into hot rods in high school. You got into cars.
Yeah.
And then what did you drive that? Did you have an embarrassing first car? Or was the Chevelle the first car to drive?
No, my Chevelle was my first car.
Okay.
My dad came home one day and he said, "Hey, you got your learner's permit. I guess it's time to start thinking of a car." And I said, "Yeah." And I'd been saving up, and I had a YZ motor, Yamaha YZ that I had bought, and with paper route money, and I was going to sell that to put towards a car. And he came home and he said, "Hey, a buddy of mine over in Iowa's got a car for sale." And he goes, "You might be interested in it." I go, "Oh, what is it?" And when you're that old, it's like, any car, anything is good, And he goes, "It's a 67 Chevelle SS." And as soon as I heard SS, I said, "Let's go get it. Let's go look at it." And went over there and bought it. And I paid the phenomenal amount of $625 for it. And it was completely original. And it was, everything on it was original. It had hubcaps on it. And the guy had special ordered it because it had, it was an SS, but it had a bench seat, 2-speed power glide. And I'm like, a big block with a 2-speed power glide. That was unheard of. And he had done it. He goes, "Oh, I didn't care about it being an SS. I just wanted the big motor for towing my trailer, And then he never towed a trailer with it. It never even had a hitch on it. So that was cool. It was a neat little car. And, I quickly, I got a job at the local speed shop in Omaha called One Stop Performance. And all my buddies were there. All the older guys that were drag racers, and I learned a ton of stuff there. And
was this in high school you started working there?
Yeah, in high school. And then as I went to college, I worked there during the day and UPS at nights, and then went to school. And it was how I funded my habit of cars. And by that time, the Chevelle was my race car, my street race car, which had, like 10-inch slicks under it on Corvette rally wheels, had Krager SS's up front, and I was the only guy in town that had nitrous oxide. And so I had a nitrous oxide injected big block, and it was a fun little car. And then I had my El Camino that I still have, was my daily driver. So
okay.
Yep. Did you have a mullet?
He did have a mullet. I've seen pictures. So.
Not back then, but I did it one time. Big time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's my joke when I announce autocross. El Camino translates into English is I used to have a mullet. Yeah.
but it was fun. It was Omaha was, people always make fun of it, or it's made fun of in movies and stuff, but it actually was a great place to grow up, because till you live there, you don't realize how many big corporations are there, and people came in from everywhere. You'd go to school and you'd go, have you always lived here? No, I came from New York. No, I came from Chicago. No, I came from Atlanta. Their parents all got transferred there. Yeah. And then the car scene was huge. I mean, I used to pull in with my Chevelle to school, and there'd be a car or two sitting there waiting to street race in front of the school from another school, and come to race the orange Chevelle that Fanshaw owns, and then we would go. I think of the cars that were on the street back then, LS6 Chevelles.
I'm a little younger than you, but I mean, our school was really, really small, 170 kids, but I had a 64 SS. Greg had a 68 Ford XL 500. Another guy had a 70 Cutlass. I mean, there was 10 hot rods.
Yeah. Well, that's what people drove,
Second gen Camaro with fake tunnel ram, fake velocity stacks on the hood, And but yeah, there was
a girl.
Now there's no hot rods in the parking lot.
There was a girl that went to my high school that had a lime green Super B with a 6-pack 440 and a pistol grip shifter. And she would show up at the street races, and she could shift like nobody's business. And I mean, it was like, it was crazy. And there was a guy with a 427 Cammer Galaxy, and there was a guy, because there were a lot of wealthy farmers, and their kids had really nice cars, a lot of Hemi cars, but that was back when you could buy that stuff for next to nothing and modify it and have fun with it.
It's equivalent to buying a used Camry now, probably.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, money levels. But so you get out of high school. What was next?
So they kicked me out of high school, and then after I got out of prison, it was no. I got out of high school, and my parents told me they're moving back to Scottsdale, and so I stayed in Omaha for about, I think, maybe 6 or 9 months. To finish a semester of college, because I had started college. And
what were you taking in college? Were you taking marketing classes and stuff like that? I was taking
marketing, advertising, and real estate. Okay. And because what I wanted to do was be a magazine editor. That's what I wanted to be. And so I was photography and advertising and marketing. But then I also had this thing, well, I can always fall back on real estate, and I was taking real estate classes. And after it got cold again, I went, what am I doing here? I'm going to Scottsdale,
Yeah.
And so I moved back down there, and that's when I was looking for a job, and ABA made me an offer, and it was like,
were they still like in the offices they aren't? I mean,
no.
They have offices in Oklahoma, but they're in Chandler now. Their offices are.
Chandler, but it was 3 different offices before that. Okay. And Merle Minigo was still president, and Gene Roden was working there, and
I get to interview Gene on the red carpet at the last Hall of Fame. He was there.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, yeah.
Jane Roden.
Yeah, he's a character.
We're going on summer tour, boys. You know. Yeah, he was funny. So many stories and characters.
So what year was that you started at ABA?
Gosh, I'm gonna say 80. I think it was 82. I think it was 82. And because I'd lived back in Arizona for like a year, then I went to work for him. And I'd been studying at college, and I had a semester to go, and I had been talking to some magazines about going to work for him, and everything was, you start at the bottom and you'll work for years and maybe make your way up. And they made me an offer to come in and be the editor of ABA Action.
Which is the membership paper.
The membership paper, yes.
Paper magazine, but it was.
Yep.
They printed them like paper, yeah.
Because they were just starting, they were still talking about it, but they were getting ready to start Bicycles and Dirt, and so they wanted me to come in and do the paper, and so we started doing that.
Weird. They're editor of their paper now. They call it magazine, Pole Magazine.
Right, Pole Magazine.
Want to know where he's from?
Nebraska?
Omaha.
Really? Well, see, that's where all the good guys come from.
Yeah, that's Justin Wall. He's from Omaha. Yeah.
That's cool.
That's crazy. That just hit me. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Tim worked there. I worked there. And the thing back then was.
So this is a quick touch on, how did he get to Arizona? Tim?
Him and I moved down there together. When I said I was moving down there, he decided to move down there, and he moved down to race BMX and stuff. And we were actually roommates, and I had a house, and he rented a room from me. And so then we were working at ABA, and back then, man, it was brutal. We would work all week, and we would be editing the paper, and then we would leave on like a Thursday night, go in, help run the races, fly home, and when everybody else would get a day off, we'd go back and get back on the paper and get all that done. And
you would say BMX, it's big, BMX in the Olympics, but it's still a small company. I mean, it really is. Yeah. There's less than 20 people, I'd say, probably full-timers. Yeah, it's still ran like that.
It's hardcore, and so we did that for a bunch of years. Then I became the editor of Bicycles and Dirt. And
so one of my favorite covers at Bicycles and Dirt magazine, it was probably my first Bicycles and Dirt issue that I got. It was the garage picture with the little kid sitting on the ground.
Thompson.
And Stu Thompson, like, teaching him how to work on his bike. I was like, that's the coolest cover ever.
That was my parents' house.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome. Yeah.
That was my parents' house.
There was a lot of cool BMX action, but I would say that's one of the coolest covers that I had at Bicycles and Dirt. Yeah.
That was a fun one. And actually, let me clarify. I was not the editor of Bicycles and Dirt. I was the assistant editor. But I was the editor of ABA Action, but the assistant editor, Denny, was the editor. And because he was the editor of ABA Action, I came in to do that. He went on to Bicycles and Dirt. And and so we did that, worked there for years. But after being with the magazine for a while,
that magazine, how long did that magazine last? 3 years? 5 years?
Yeah, about that. About 3 years, yeah. And
because that was like through the heyday when 84, wasn't it? Was the ESPN series of BMX, and like pros were buying Porsches, and Hill started his own company.
They were making real money.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was.
But we
that was the heyday of BMX and the money. Yeah, it was really good then.
So we were doing that, and one day I was talking, to Merle, the owner, and he goes, Brad, you seem to do a lot more. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, you're selling sponsorships now. You're selling advertising. You're doing this, and we talked, and I realized I did like the business side as much as I liked the creative magazine side, but I realized that I could make more money on the business side. And I was made the vice president, and and I started. That's when I started bringing in sponsors that they'd never seen before. I brought in American Honda, and I brought in. I would go on the plane, and like back then, you'd fly to a race, and you'd get your snacks, and Anheuser-Busch had just come out with what's now real common, but the peanuts that had the like cinnamon sugar type stuff on them, and nobody had ever seen those before. And I can't remember the brand name they market them under now, but
was it Eagle Snacks?
it might have been. It was something, but I
remember Eagle
contacted them.
Snacks was in BMX there for a while. I don't know when that was.
And I said, hey, we have this many people. They come in, they travel, they do this. They're and I got them to be a sponsor, and it was a way to get Anheuser-Busch to be a sponsor of a kids sport, and then I got like Tri-Flow lubricants, and we would I would write them up to a sponsorship, but then I would tell them you can sample. So like you would get the goodie. It was do they still do goodie bags at the Grands, Tim?
Yeah, at the Grands, yeah.
Because I started that. And I that's how I would introduce companies. I'd say, well, put your product in to these goodie bags, and then you'll see what kind of response you get. And then we would, get everybody to, hype them up and everything. But we brought in a lot of big sponsors, 7-Up, sponsors that had never been seen before. And then one of those sponsors I brought in was Vision Streetwear. And that was the last year I was at ABA. I said,
his name was Brad too, right? Was it Brad?
His name was Brad. Yes.
Okay.
Brad Dorfman, and he was the guy who founded it, and it was growing like by leaps and bounds. And I said, you need to. A lot of your guys, a lot of your customers are racing BMX, because Brad was skateboard guy, and and I said, you really need to look at this more. And we signed him up to a multi-year deal to be the overall sponsor of the Grands. And it was bigger deal than, anybody'd really ever had. And
if I remember right, this was like 86, 7, 8, something right around in there?
That would have been 86. Okay. And we hit it off. Brad and I just hit it off great. At the time, Everett Rosecrans, Jeff Patima, they all worked for Vision, and I knew all those guys. And so after the very first Grands, the Grands were in November. That following February at Interbike, Brad came up to me and he said, "Hey man," he goes, "my company's going crazy. I need somebody like you. Would you be willing to move to California?" And he goes, "I can make you a really good deal." And so I came over there, and the rest was history. We just partnered up, and I was able to become a big part of the company. I took over.
So back then, like some later, like around that time when you got there, I remember Vision sponsored like Pete Lonkarovich, #1 pro for Haro. So were you involved in the sponsorship program? Is that when you were at there full time then?
I basically was involved in every aspect of the company, from finance, from all of our banking and all of our growth, to all the way down to what skateboard, snowboard, or BMX contracts we did. Like I hired Mike Miranda to be my BMX team manager, and hired a guy named John Hogan to be my team manager for the skateboards. And you brought up at the top of the show, you brought up Sim Snowboards. We own Sim Snowboards. And so
I think I might have said, or in my mind, I said, I didn't know.
No, you didn't say, hey, you just said snowboards. And
but that was also at the beginning of snowboards, kind of, too.
Yes, this was the early days. It wasn't even legal to snowboard most places. And we were having to help push that with ski resorts and stuff. And
I didn't know that Vision owned Sims. I thought they were two separate companies that you went on to. So I learned something.
No, we owned all that. And it was such a cool time because it all happened so fast. We grew. So when I landed at the company, we were doing about $5 million a year in sales. And when I left the company 4 years later, we were doing 135 million. So it grew.
But that was like the beginning
tremendous.
of that boom of action sports and the clothing and the this and the that and the. There wasn't X Games yet, but it was hitting TV and
X Games is pretty much says they modeled it after what we did, because we did like what we did like Skate Escape and Vision Pro in the snow and all the BMX things, the tramway events. Because what we would do is we would go in. We owned our own production company, and we would go in and we would say, we went up to like Squat and we said, hey, we want to put on a snowboard event here, and all of our guys will come in. We'll put on the competition. We're going to film it for ESPN. Back in those days, we could go to ESPN and we could do what's called a barter agreement, where we would produce the entire show. We could do whatever we wanted. We would give it to them as a package that all they had to do was plug it in and go. We sold half the ads. They sold half the ads. That's how they made money off of it. Well, the half of the ads that we wanted were all Vision Streetwear ads, So it was like you would see like a guy come on and he would be wearing Vision Streetwear, and he'd go, hey man, we're here at the Vision Pro in the snow, and the mic tent would say Vision Streetwear, and then they would interview one of our guys, then interview somebody else, then interview one of our guys. Then we'd see the competition. Then it would go to an ad, maybe a Gatorade ad that ESPN sold, but then a Vision Streetwear ad, and it was just
this
so
is the time,
cool.
and it's like the skateboarding back then. Well, that was like the era, wasn't it? Of like, he didn't ride for you guys, but Hosoi,
yeah, he did ride for us, but then he left. Yes.
What Gator? I mean, Gator has a bad story, but were you there like that era of that?
Yeah, that's all when I was there. Yep.
Not exaggerating.
Don's, Gator.
Those guys are still. It's like us talking about Stu Thompson and Greg Hill. That's the era of skateboards. And man, I follow Hosoi, and he's still a rock star. I mean,
I know he can still ride great. And
and like the stuff. That's why some of them guys got in trouble, because they were such rock star guys. Nobody ever told them no back then when they were.
We paid 18-year-olds multi-six-figure salaries and royalty deals, and I mean, you give an 18-year-old kid who's a skater that kind of money, it's great. Like Hosoi is a really good example. He was making.
You give me that kind of money now, I'm probably going to get in trouble.
Exactly. Hosoi, he was living in W.C. Field's old mansion up in the hills, and he drained the pool so that he'd have everybody over for these raging parties and ride in the pool. And I mean, we could go story after story about what I did with the skaters, traveling with them. But then the BMXers, every BMXer that you can think of, I mean, like you said, Pete Lonkarovich, Billy Griggs, Eddie King, I could just go on and on and on. I sponsored all those guys.
Greystoke magazine for Christmas from Kerry, and Moeller was writing a little bit about Vision Streetwear in there, that he was on Vision Streetwear for half a year or something like that. Yeah.
It was great times. And then on the other side of Vision Streetwear, we were doing all of the TV, movie, and rock star stuff. And I mean, back then, you talk about crazy days. We had you could almost name anybody from punk to rock back then wore our stuff. And we
Vision
got to
Streetwear in the 80s is what early 2000s was Von Dutch.
Yeah.
Like, you turned on MTV, they're all, here's, MTV Cribs, and they're wearing a Von Dutch shirt.
Right.
In the late 80s, that was Vision. It really was. It was everywhere.
You look at NXS, the cover of their biggest album, they've got they've got My Skater Guns with our deck on it, and then
the logo of one of their albums was modeled after your square Vision Streetwear logo. Yeah.
Exactly. And Poison, when they were at their height, there's an album cover where every single one of them are wearing our clothes almost head to toe. But one of the biggest ones was we went to at the LA Coliseum, Charlotte and I, my wife Charlotte and I, we went to a concert, and we had been invited by the Stones because they were wearing our shoes and our hip packs on stage. and we got invited by the Stones. I'll never forget getting there, and the Coliseum's massive, and you walk in at the top level, and the very first person goes, "Okay, keep going." Second person, keep going. Get down to like the real low levels, and they go, "Oh, you're down on the grass." And we go, "Okay, cool." We get down on the grass, and we're at the back. We start walking to the front, and I'll never forget. We got to a certain point, and the security guard looked at our tickets, and he goes, "Hell, you're right up front, man." And we were dead center. We didn't know where we were. We were dead center, like 2 rows back, and everybody around us was a major rock star from that time of the day. And because opened up by Living Color was the opening band, then Guns N' Roses, then the Stones. I mean, what a concert. And everybody was wearing our stuff. It was so cool. Those were coolly, really fun times to be doing all that stuff.
Very cool. So you were there at Vision and Sims. After that, were you doing any car stuff at this time? Did you obviously still had your Chevelle? Did you have a hot rod in the garage, or were you just too busy traveling?
No. I always, Tim, being a car guy, I had a '66 Chevelle sitting in my garage that I was tinkering with and playing with.
You still got the El Camino because you still own that.
I still got the El Camino, still got the Chevelle. My daily driver was a brand new Grand National Buick, and Charlotte had a Monte Carlo SS. And
when and where did you meet Charlotte?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember that.
No, most of us put up with Brad because Charlotte is the coolest ever. Yeah.
She is. She's the best. It's like
she's awesome. So is she Arizona, California, Nebraska?
She was Nebraska. She was Nebraska. Okay. I was in high school, and she will refute this story, but a big '68 Impala. My best friend Mike Harmer and I were out roaming the streets on a Friday night, and this big '68 Impala pulls up alongside, and it was his girlfriend, and Kim said, "Hey, will you guys buy us some cigarettes and beer?" And and so we not me. I was a skinny dude, man, back then.
Charlotte's story is probably like she met you at church. That's probably what
she's not. She will admit she was out with Kim and the girls, but she goes, "You weren't buying. I didn't even drink beer." I said, "Yeah, you were slow gin fizz girl, and so, but my buddy Mike, he was like 6'4" in high school, built, and he could just walk in and buy, and they never even asked him, and. So he went in, got a 6-pack of beer and some cigs, and took them out to the girls. And I said to Mike, I go, "Hey, who's that girl in the back seat?" And he goes, "Oh, her name's Kim. I mean, not Kim. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Her name's what?" and he thought I meant the other girl. So then next weekend we pull up to the Burger King, and they're all sitting there at the booth eating and hanging out. And we get in there, and Mike tells his girlfriend that hey, I wanted to go out with this other girl. And so Charlotte tells me now that she goes, "Oh, I was razzing her. Your boyfriend's here, all this stuff." And then all of a sudden they found out after she had razzed the hell out of her that no, it was you. And so then it all turned on her. But we went out, and we were out at the local dam site where everybody hung out, and drank beer.
The submarine races.
Yeah. And her friend stole her car so that she would have to stay with me. And I had to take her home and everything. And just worked out. When I moved to Arizona, she was still in Nebraska. And then I always give her a hard time. I said, "Yeah, I moved to Nebraska to get rid of you, and you followed me down there." She transferred down to ASU and went and finished her college up down there. So
okay, cool.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. We never knew that story. So yeah.
Yep. So high school, all the way since high school, it was meant to be.
That's cool.
So
does she ever say what my wife says to me sometimes? I'm not sure it's a compliment. She looks at me and just says, I'm too old to start over. To carry Delphine.
Not in the same words, but oh yeah, all the time. You know.
Yeah.
She also tells people that don't worry, he's got a big insurance policy. So I don't know what that means, but
I know exactly what that means. Yeah.
But so
this is the first sighting right here.
Yep.
We have cats. This is our new guy, Mercury, that just got fixed 2 days ago. He is was an outdoor cat and is an indoor cat now. So
all right.
Axel came in earlier, so he's still getting used to the house. So if you hear something screaming in the background, that's Mercury.
Yeah.
Okay. How many cats do you have?
Two.
Yep.
Yeah.
We used to have cats. Now we have dogs.
So. Yeah. Well, we traveled too much to have dogs. So
I know cats were a lot easier. They were a lot easier, but dogs are expensive. I just found out to, put up and board and all that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So
how did the Vision Sims thing end?
So anyway, Vision, real quick, just to kind of tie them together. I always loved cars, obviously. So like I had always wanted a set of Boyd wheels, and at Vision, I was finally making enough money to buy stuff like that. And
the set of Boyd wheels back then were like,
they were expensive.
Like $3,000, which is like
they were
$20,000
$4,000. They were $1,000 a piece for the first set I bought. Yeah. And so I bought a set for Charlotte's. Charlotte, of course, got them. That's how I, that's how you figure it out.
How you make it okay.
I want to get you a set of wheels, and because if I came home and said I wanted a new set of wheels, that'd be different. So we put a set of Boyd wheels on the Monte Carlo SS, and back then, you would drive up, Boyd would come out, and he'd talk to you, and you'd buy them right from Boyd, and and so I met Boyd just casually, bought the wheels, and he asked me what I did, and I told him I ran a big action sports company and blah, blah, blah. I've always wanted to do apparel. And I said,
rock stars were coming and going at Boyd's all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And so time goes on, and we wanted to get a Woody and talk to Boyd about building a Woody for us. And then things started changing at Vision, and there's a whole nother side story of why it ended, but it got to the point where we became a big corporation. We had 1,200 employees. We, everybody had to wear ID badges and, all the stuff that comes. It wasn't this cool, rad skate company as much as it was a big corporation.
Yeah,
I mean, we were doing offshore banking, and we were doing it, and it wasn't me so much as Brad Dorfman. And we sat down one day, and he goes, "Yeah, this isn't what I started out to do, and sold some divisions off, pared it way down, and that's when I sold."
That's smart if you're a business guy, man. Just build that business up and sell it.
Yeah. Well, he kept the U.S. division. We sold the European and the Asian division, and that put money in the pocket. And so I sold my interest out, and then I was trying to figure out what to do. I did some consulting for MTV and Nickelodeon and some people like that back in the day. And then I had this harebrained idea about doing this thing called Tour of Performance. I wanted to do 2 semis that would go around the nation, and back when malls were big, and you would go to the mall, and there'd be, going down the center of the mall, it would tell about the Tour of Performance. And I had Chevy signed on, working with Herb Fischel from their race division. And I had, and I thought, and we were going to actually build some cars. And my whole idea was, it was a way for me to fund building some new cars, And so I went up to talk to Boyd about doing this, and him being, building the cars and stuff like that. And the more we talked, the more we got to know each other. And when some things didn't work out on the sponsorship end, Boyd called me and he said, why don't you just come? He goes, you know, and let's talk, you know, and so the original hot rod shop, the one you see in the photos where that cartoon's painted on the wall and everything like that. Him and I stood leaning on the dumpster outside the body shop, and I told him that I thought we could grow that company and make it bigger than he ever imagined, and he and I talked about it, and what I left out was like the week before he was in the middle of Cadzilla, and so he was going through crazy stuff with Cadzilla, and just to give it kind of a timeline, and we shook hands there. I bought into the company. I became his partner, and I invested, wrote him a check right there on the dumpster lid. I remember that. And we, Cadzilla got finished up. It got shipped out, and I walked in the door, and I spent probably 6 months there. People knew I was there, but they thought I was a consultant. They didn't know I was Boyd's new partner, because I didn't want anybody to, you know, like, I wanted real information. I didn't want him to, he's one of the owners. I don't want to tell him that, you know. And so I spent, and back then he had 2 CNC machines, and the entire company as a whole, hot rod shop and the wheel company, was doing $500,000 a year. And so it was still a pretty small company, but I knew we could grow it. And so I came in, we started making a lot of changes, improvements. We added the new building. And
Cadzilla, I mean, everybody in the hot rod world knew who Boyd was at that time, but Cadzilla really, I don't know, put his balloon higher or put the spotlight on him. So it was a good time to come in, and you've seen that, okay, we can really
market it. Yeah.
Yeah, we've done Cadzilla, still one of the top 5 custom cars ever.
So Cadzilla came out. Cadzilla came out, the big Cadzilla issue. Then the last issue of the year, Hot Rod used to do that top things of the year, and it would have like the top hot rod, the top muscle car, the top engine builder. And Cadzilla and Boyd Coddington were on it, and it was Boyd Coddington, the top builder in the world, you know. And so that's when I joined, and we did it. And then 5 years later, I took the company public, and we were doing $45 million a year. And that's
we had Chris on the podcast, and he says the wheel company alone. Like, I just seen a clip on YouTube too about how many sets of wheels a week went out of that place.
Yeah.
Like, I thought the clip that I seen, it was an old, like, not Motor Trend, but one of them morning show things. I thought they said 1,200 sets of wheels a day left. And Chris said that they were over 300 employees in the wheel shop at one time.
We actually had a few more than that. We had closer to 400 at one point in the whole company.
Okay,
and at our height, we were doing 10,000 wheels a month. And now you got to remember that we had a foundry there, and we were also, you know, they weren't all billet, because we also did cast aluminum centers. We did 2-piece cast, and we not only did our own wheels, but we did wheels for Krager and American Racing too. But it was still, we were doing a ton of wheels. And then the hot rod shop, while I was there, we finished up Cadzilla, we did Shazoom, Alumacoup. There's more than.
You're taking stuff. Alumacoup went to was it the New York new car show or something like that, wasn't it? And like Mitsubishi powered. I mean, it's an era of hot rodding. Some of these traditional hot rod guys now, the traditional stuff's really big, right? We're putting flat heads in stuff. We're putting nail heads, early Cadillacs, tall, skinny bias plies. And some of them guys don't like that billet era. But to me, that is the best era of hot. But that's when I started paying attention to more. I'm 16, 17, 20. You know, I start my shop coming. That era of the billet and now Marcel's building bodies for you guys. And, you know, you're not just cutting up something stock. You're creating something from nothing, just like Rad Rides did this last year with that 36. You know, that was an era to me of creativity, pushing the envelope, not just from Boyd, but Boyd helped that push all along. The quality, the fit and finish, they still say, "Oh, it's got Boyd fit and finish on it." I mean, the era, the ingenuity, the different motors, the colors. I don't think we'll ever recreate that time in the hot rod world again. I hope we do, but that's to me like we talked about the BMX heyday when you were there in the late 80s. This is the heyday of the big money cars at that time when I mean cars are still big money now, don't get me wrong.
Not just the big money cars, it was the ingenuity and the creative, like you said, the creativeness and the things we got to do and what we got away with, because at the same time we were doing these hot rods, Ferrari USA was importing cars from Italy, and if they got damaged, they brought them to our shop, and Testarossas were sitting in the back, and the guys were fixing them and matching the paint and everything. Major car companies were coming to us to do their concept cars, and that's where I got to know so many people. One of the things
you worked there in an era of Boyd's that was like you were there when Chip came, right?
I hired Chip.
I hired Jesse. Yeah, some motorcycle guy named Jesse James was there in the shop. Like, obviously, you knew these guys. What? I mean, Boyd put out a
Here's how I always say.
Boyd had some amazing craftsmen in there. That's why they were able to build the stuff.
And everybody always forgets about Larry Erickson. I mean, probably the most iconic cars that ever came out of our shop.
Yeah.
Cadzilla, Smoothster,
we've had Larry as a guest on our podcast. Yeah. We had him on here last.
And Larry did those cars. He was the pen behind those cars.
That was before Foose got there.
And then you look at just how we started naming the cars. Nobody named cars before that. It was just a cool 32, or it was Tom's 32, or something like that.
The marketing behind that is now we can sell the Smoothster T-shirt. The Smoothster,
right?
It's the whole
package.
Well,
package.
Gray Baskerville, and if you don't know who Gray Baskerville is, anybody, look him up. He was another icon that we miss a lot. He was so awesome and so enthusiastic. Him and I stood out looking at Shazoom when it was still in metal, and like I named a Luma Coupe, but that one was totally gray, and Gray was looking at it, and he kind of rubbed his hands together like he was, and he goes, I think it's a Shazoom. And I said, what? And he goes, it just looks like it Shazooms. And that's where the name came from. And
57. Yeah.
Yeah. And you talk about the Aluma Coupe. There's a real funny backstory on that car because Larry designed it. He penned it. And at the time, Larry worked for Cadillac. And he would get on a plane noon on Fridays, fly to California, come in and be working. This was way before Marcel. We had guys hammering the metal that we brought over from Italy. And
Craig Naff was there too.
Yeah, Naff was there. We had these great guys. And that's what I always feel bad about is there were so many talented, all the Swedes that were there and stuff. Everybody talks about Jesse. Everybody talks about Chip. Everybody talks Boyd, me. But all those guys, it would have never happened if it weren't for them.
Yeah, there was a Lars guy. There was a Johnny Anderson was the machinist.
Johnny Anderson. You had Andy, and you had Lars, and you had Larry Sergeff, and you had Greg Morrell and Petey
Larry
Morrell.
Was the chassis wizard, right?
What's that?
Larry was the chassis wizard.
Yeah.
And isn't he building like trophy trucks or off-road trucks or something like that?
He did go on. He worked for Fox, and then when Fox got sold, he retired. But but so Larry would come in to work on a Luma Coupe with us, and the thing was we were going to put a Cadillac North Star motor in it because that was the hot motor at the time. And as it went up the chain, somebody kiboshed it. Yeah, we don't want a Cadillac motor in a hot rod, and the car's like really close. We'd already like designed it to have this Cadillac North Star motor in it. And Harry Hibbler, the publisher of Hot Rod Magazine, he was there and we were telling him about it, and I'm talking to him and he goes, let me make a few calls. I think I might be able to get something done. Well, Boyd just assumed he was going to call Cadillac and get something done. Well, he calls over to Mitsubishi and says, hey, Boyd Coddington's building this car over there, and what would you think about getting involved with it? And they jumped all over it.
Because it was, if people don't know, that it was a rear engine car.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they were promoting their new little sports car, which had a turbocharged 4-cylinder in it, which to put a turbocharged 4-cylinder in a Hot Rods by Boyd was like almost like, sacrilege back then.
Yeah.
But I sat Boyd down and I said, Boyd, you got to understand. I said, this car's got to get done. It can't just sit here. We're not going to put a small block in it. And I said, this is transaxle motor. It'll work. And the whole thing, we go, and he goes, no, we're not. No, I'm going to figure something else out. We're not putting a Mitsubishi in it. And we went back and forth. I got him to say, let's bring a test motor over, like a junk motor, just see how it fits. I got him to agree to it. He was very reluctant, but got him to agree to it. And then we were getting ready to debut the car, and Mitsubishi came to us and they said, hey, we want to take the car to New York. This year, we're the featured mark. When you walk in the front doors of Jacob Javits Center, our turntable is there, and we want to put a Lumacoup on the turntable. It'll be the first time in our company's history that it's not one of our cars, on the turntable. And so we're like, oh my God, this is great. I told Boyd, he goes, no, we're not going to have our car in the Mitsubishi booth and in New York. And he was so opposed to it. And I called up Harry Hibbler, and I'm on the phone to him, and I said, Boyd said, absolutely not. And Harry goes, well, Brad, he goes, they're already doing so much stuff, but this is a big deal. I said, oh, no, I didn't say no. I said, yeah, let's do it. And I said, I'll just talk him into it. And Harry goes, are you sure? And I said, yeah, I'm sure. And when I told Boyd that, he was so mad. I mean, he was so mad at me. And I said, Boyd, trust me, this is going to be worth it. And we walked into the front doors at Jacob Javits Center, and there's the car under all the lights, spinning around. And there's this huge crowd of people around it. Everything's positive. And our guy walks up to us from Mitsubishi, and he goes, gentlemen, do you have some time? And we're like, hey, we're here for you. What's going on? The Wall Street Journal and USA Today, which were the two biggest, they want to interview you guys. And they wanted to interview us about this car. And so they interviewed us. The next morning, we met downstairs. We walked, and through the front doors comes Harry Hibbler, and he's got USA Today and Wall Street Journal. And there's a color photo of the Lumacoup and back then, USA Today was everything. Everybody read it, and a Lumacoup was on the cover, and it says, Boyd Coddington creates, hybrid hot rod, blah, blah, blah. And then in Wall Street Journal, it was one of those little drawings of the car. If you've ever seen those like black and white drawings that Wall Street Journal does, and this huge article about us. Hardly anything about Mitsubishi. It was about us. And I'll never forget, we're walking to the car to go back to the convention center, and Boyd looks over and he goes, I'm going to tell everybody this was all my idea. And then he gave me his little...
So Larry Erickson told a quick story about that, and he goes, so then it got, the press, and then at work back at Cadillac, they pull him aside and says, did you help on that car?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, well, I kind of helped design it, on the side. And they're like, I don't know if they asked him, why didn't you use a Cadillac with somebody else that didn't know that Cadillac passed? And it's like, so you built a car that had a Mitsubishi motor in it? And he's like, well, I helped design it. And they're like, we just asked you not to do that again. He says, I kind of got my wrist slapped, but he says, I didn't get in big trouble, but it was almost like they realized that maybe they should have put a North Star in that thing, but
his boss realized he really screwed up. And like Larry
goes, they asked him not to work with a Mitsubishi motor on another hot rod.
And Larry said, you almost got me in big trouble, Brad.
Yeah.
Because he said all his bosses were over at that booth, and that's when they realized we should have been the guys with it on our turntable,
Yeah.
And that was kind of fun stuff that we got to do.
That Buzz DeVosta, whatever car
yeah,
that won the Amber. What did that one have in it for a motor? It was a rear engine car too. Did it have a North Star?
It didn't win Amber. That was the Roadstar, and that did had a Cadillac North Star motor in it.
Okay, that one didn't win Amber.
No, we were kind of disappointed. It lost. They said because of the paint, and we thought the paint was nice, but that car had a backstory too. The big Northridge earthquake. We had just moved into the new hot rod shop. Literally the day before, we had hung these huge, giant lights, these vapor lights, which were the state of the art back then, and the guy, all of us, Chip, Boyd, and I, we all said the same thing. The electrician said, "Yeah, everything should be good unless we have a big earthquake or something." And literally that night, we had that huge earthquake, and we all rushed to the shop in the middle of the night, and one of the lights had fallen, but it didn't hit a single car. But car was like in final assembly to go to the Grand National Roadster Show, and we thought, oh my God, it was like, but
so you were there too during the Marcel shaped Foose design, the Boydsters, and then producing the fiberglass copies of them too. You were there during that era?
I was not. I actually was there during the first Boydster, the Boydster 1.
Okay.
And that's when I sold out my interest in the company and left. And it was just, things changed, and I sold my interest.
You were there though when it went public, right?
I took it public, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That was one of the things that I did that it was difficult because people don't realize there had never been an aftermarket company that went public, ever. We were the very first ones. And when I went to do that, it was very difficult to get people to understand what we did. They could understand wheels, but I heard a million times from brokers and accountants, people pay that much for wheels and you sell that many of them. And then when you go to New York,
we still fight that. I think today we still fight that all these years later. Yeah.
But when you go to New York, think of this. Think of going to New York, and there are people there that are making decisions that have never owned a car. And so we also broke ground even in the public offering arena because, number one, if you've ever seen online any of the videos I used to do, I call them Wild Wheels. There's a Wild Wheels 1, Wild Wheels 2, 3, 4. And we used to do one every year and debut it at SEMA. And
I have a bunch of I have a Boyd collection of stuff.
Okay.
I have some of the Boyd Report little newsletters.
Oh yeah, my old newsletter that we used to.
Yeah. And I have some of the folders. So that was when you were there, that you could go into Walmart, like buy school supplies, and you could buy a folder with Boyd Coddington cars on it.
Yeah, I did a licensing deal with Meade School folders because
I have a few of them. One of my favorite pictures from Boyd's, I think it was on the cover of Street Rodder. Then you use that. It was a red 32, the black B400, right? And then wasn't that Roy Pickford's son sweeping up
all the chips?
Yeah. And then another guy we forgot, Little John, was kind of there building motorcycles then, right?
Well, I've been staring at you. I've been staring behind you. That's one of the cars that John and I did. We did that series of cars.
Yeah, I've only got one of those. And you did 3 of them, didn't you?
We did 4.
Okay.
We did 4. We did the Streamliner. That was the very first one right there. And I remember
this one was.
I talked to John about doing them. That was after. Oh man. What are you trying to think of?
I'm trying to think whose car this was. He passed away. My buddy bought a bunch of his stuff, and I have 2 Little John.
Oh, you mean whose collection you got that from?
Yeah.
Chairs. He was from Texas. I think he owned the 55 on the first episode of American Hot Rod.
In one of my file cabinets around here, I have a list and serial number of everybody who bought one. And
how can I always know that guy's name. I feel bad that I'm blank on that guy's name, whose car that was. So
happens to me all the time.
And I have a lamp too. I have a little John lamp.
Yeah, yeah. He used to give those away I got one too. I got one for a
Yeah.
Christmas present one year.
Yeah. This one's engraved. It was 1988.
Nice.
And I
Uh,
just recently bought some billet stuff that he had made. That a guy bought a lot of stuff at the end there of they're made to look like the lamp, and they screw down, and then these other things pop in. They're billet black anodized wall shelving.
I saw you post that. Those looked really cool. Yeah.
I got it from the guy. He has so much of Little John stuff. I just take his word for it. I don't want him to prove it. He says he actually got Little John Buturo's porn collection.
Well, everything got sold.
Yeah.
Those cars were, after I left Boyd's, I was fiddling around and getting my mail order company going, and I stopped by John.
What year did you leave Boyd?
Pardon me?
What year did you leave Boyd?
96.
Okay, so to
February
finish up,
96.
Sometimes you get some love, sometimes you do get some hate from doing the offering, because that was kind of
people that didn't
the hot rod
understand
world
it.
just wasn't ready for that. But if any company was ready at that time, it was Boyd's, as big as he was. Now there's hardly any companies that aren't owned by a private equity and aren't traded on the stock market.
I know.
So now it's the thing. It's like, I remember when Amoco or whatever come out with a gas card that was tied to your bank account. You could just go to the gas. This was before debit cards. People were up in arms. I'm not having any card tied to my banking. But now you don't think twice about using your debit card. But that's kind of, it was the first for the aftermarket hot rod company to help do that, good or bad. But I still have some friends that have some stocks framed on their wall.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. I get hate sometimes, and it's because they don't understand, or they got the short end. And I mean, the problem is that when I sold out at the top of the market, and I was real lucky. I'd promoted it enough that an insurance company came and said, "We will buy your entire stock." I didn't have to do it bits and pieces, and I was like, "Cool, let's go." And that was all good, but unfortunately, Boyd had his problems after I left, and they burned through the money, and it went bankrupt, and that sucked, and that was a bad deal, because, like I always say, it was my baby too, and I didn't want to see that happen,
Yeah. How many years were you at Boyd's total?
Like just shy of 5. Okay. Yeah. And what a lot of people don't understand is that Boyd and I didn't talk for like 10 years. I mean, we would go to SEMA, and I'd go to a party. If I went to this side of the room, he'd go to that side. We'd be, and he, and then he approached me at the Grand National Roadster Show one year, and he said, "Hey, can we talk?" And I said, yeah, what's up? And he said to me, he goes, "Listen, I made a mistake." And then he stopped and he went, "Well, not about everything." But he goes, "But I made a mistake." And he goes, "I was listening to all the wrong people and all the people around me." And he goes, "You and I had our arguments, and then you left." And he goes, because I didn't want to admit it at the time, but I kind of knew it was a big mistake, because when you got there, we grew, and when you left, it dwindled, and so we started having lunch every once in a while, started talking, and then when he got his licensing back from American Racing, it was within months that I got my licensing back on my wheel company from US Wheel, and we opened up that new factory in up in Buena Park, not Buena Park, wherever it was that he was, behind the hot rod shop. And he and I were going to go back into business building Bondspeed and Boyd's together. And then it started working out so well that he actually gathered all the guys one day. He asked, well, I mean, this was post some conversations that we had. And he told, Shot was there. I mean, name anybody that was on the TV show. They were all there, because I was never there during the TV show days. And he said, "Hey, I just want to let you know, Brad's coming back in. We're partnering back up, and he's going to be part of the hot rod shop. We got a lot of big plans." And we never got to do that because he got sick shortly after that and then passed away. And
yeah, because it was like months after he bought his wheel line, got the whatever you called that.
oh, well, the licensing ended and he didn't renew it. Yeah.
But it was months after he got that, right? And then he passed away, right? It was
yeah.
yeah.
And it was pretty shocking because we didn't expect it. I mean, we'd been out having lunch and laughing, and then he got really ill, and it's just one of the things that happen when he had diabetes very bad, and he didn't really take care of it ever, and
that's what Chris has said many times. I listened to his podcast, and he goes, that era of guys, they didn't take care. He goes, it took us so long to drive to see family in Vegas because every place there was a milkshake, my dad had to stop and get a milkshake.
Yep.
And he goes, they didn't. I mean, Fat Jack and all those guys.
Fat Jack's another one. Yeah. It's
but when you left Boyd's, did you start Bond Speed Wheels right after you left Boyd's?
No, I couldn't because being I was the second largest shareholder of the company. I was on the board of directors, and I was the president of the company. I was actually when we went public, I was the president and chief. Not Boyd was the chief executive officer. I was the chief
operating COO.
Yeah, COO. Thank you. Yeah. And because of that, and because Boyd and I were kind of sideways at the time. I signed this huge non-disclosure, non-compete, that I would not build hot rods. I would not build muscle cars. I would not professionally do wheels. It even got down to, it was ridiculous. It was down to I wouldn't build go-kart wheels because we had talked to a guy about building go-kart.
You grew that company to be such a big corporate entity. That's what all corporations do.
That's what they do.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't even be in that business. So that's when I started my watch company. And so I started my watch company and started flying back and forth to the manufacturing plant in Switzerland. And I also started Bonneville Speed and Supply, the mail order company, with all of our apparel.
I was telling somebody about that. I was excited that we were having Brad on here. I was like, he did this. And I was like, so what I remember when you had that Bonneville Speed and Supply company, before you did some shirts for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't, you couldn't even buy a Posies or a Rad Ride shirt from them. You did their merch, right?
Or we did one. Posies. What's that?
Or did you just do one? But I don't remember. I don't remember.
No. I went to Posey and I went to Rad Ride. I went to Troy because I've known Troy since he was 16 when I met him the first time, and I said, hey, let's do merch for you guys. And so we did their whole line of merch. We designed it, we merchandised it. And then I did Tony Nancy. We did a line with him, and there were a couple other people too. And we did all that stuff and did everything from key rings to hats to t-shirts and sweatshirts and everything. And it was
because one more thing on the Boyd, because when you were at Boyd's, wasn't you there when you did the Shop Rags clothing line?
Yeah, that was my deal. I started that. Yep.
Yeah, that was.
And Charlotte actually ran that division.
Shorts, hats, t-shirt, everything. It was a lifestyle brand at that time. So you had that in your pocket, of course, with vision and all that stuff too. So you did this. How long was it before you could start doing wheels? Was it like a 5-year deal or something like that?
Well, it was supposed to be a 5-year deal, but unfortunately, fortunate for me, unfortunate for them, they went bankrupt. So as soon as they went bankrupt, everything was off the table. I was able to do whatever I wanted. Okay. And that's when US Wheel approached me and asked me if I would design a billet wheel line for them. And I said, I was marketing everything under Bonneville. My watches were Bonneville. My apparel was Bonneville Speed and Supply. But I told him, I said, I can't do wheels under Bonneville because GM owns every automotive trademark. I mean, it didn't matter what it was. Yeah. They owned everything. Yeah. And so I kind of thought about it, and I came back to him. I said, why don't we call it Bond Speed? Take the Bond from Bonneville, put speed behind it. And that's how Bond Speed was born. and then I designed the whole line of wheels with Mike Desmond. Mike and I designed the whole first line of wheels, and
Amazing artist. He did a lot of stuff with Jesse too.
Yeah, Jesse hired him away from me, and Jesse, Jesse asked me. He said, "Hey, I need somebody. I'm super busy." He goes, "Would you mind if I hired him?"
How long I've been in this industry, all the people that I know and I'm friends with, I have never met face to face Jesse James.
Oh, you haven't?
I've seen him like 20 feet away, and he's walking from an appearance or at the SEMA show. I would love to have him on here, but I've messaged him a couple times about Little John stuff because you know, and he'll message me back. But yeah, I've never met him face to face. It's weird. Big fan, I think, but yeah.
I always say to Jesse, I say, Jesse, when I met you, when I hired you, you had long hair down to the middle of your back, and you didn't have one single tattoo. And he goes, I know, shh, don't tell anybody. You know.
But at that time, was he still doing private security and stuff at that time?
No, he was working at Performance Machine. He was working at Performance Machine, and
he was Glenn Danzig from Misfits bodyguard for a while. I mean, he's not only his fabrication stuff, but I mean, he was the voiceover for Joe Kidd on a Stingray. He was the mouth guy. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. No, because
again,
I've known Jesse
an old BMXer.
Forever.
Yeah.
What's that?
Because he was an old BMXer too.
Oh yeah. I mean, there it goes right back to how we started this whole conversation. Everybody started in that era, you know, because it was that first thing that gave you freedom and first thing you could customize, you know. And
I don't think I have anything on the wall that's got, unfortunately, no Bond Speed in some of my stuff. So yeah,
but
we used a bunch of Bond Speed wheels. Our Tube Frame Falcon had Bond Speeds on it.
Yeah, that Falcon had big blocks on it. I remember that. Yeah, it was.
That's still a great looking wheel.
That was a cool car. Where'd that car ever end up? Do you know?
We took it to SEMA as a pusher. We kind of did a partnership with the guy, and I got to do a lot of cool stuff. I used a lot of BMX parts in that car.
Mm-hmm.
And then after it went to SEMA, his business fell off, so it sat unfinished in our shop for 3 years.
Oh wow!
Like it never ran when it went to SEMA. We put wheel discs on it. Didn't have a brake caliper one on it. No, it had brakes because it had to go. It had to go for Willwood that year because it had a new caliper on it. And then a buddy from Minnesota bought it, Ryan Thomas, finished it, pulled the body back off, changed the color on the chassis, showed it around Detroit and stuff. Funny story is he sold it at Columbus Good Guys the year I wasn't there. And it went to Classic Car Studio when they weren't a big hot rod shop. They were a consignment shop. They bought it and then they sold it. It almost went to Australia. Last we all knew, we were just at Classic Car Studio a month or so ago. He goes, he says he sold it to Southern California. It's never been seen. It went to a private collection, just sitting someplace.
Isn't that weird how cars do that? I mean, they just disappear. Some of the ones I've built just disappeared, you know?
Yeah.
But so where were we? I don't remember. We were talking about
you were doing the mail order stuff, selling the merch.
And then the watch company, and we
when did you bring on the wheel company, Bill Hancock?
Well, when Boyd and I partnered back up again and we had a co-factory there, that's when I hired, because Bill worked for me back in the Boyd days. Did you know that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he worked in our factory back then. He was a wheel assembler. And then he left and went to Colorado Custom way back then. And then
because that's when we really got to know him at Colorado Custom, because we also did a lot of stuff with Colorado Custom. And for quite a few years, they sent the half wraps to Carrie, and she wrapped them in leather for Colorado.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's cool. And then when I started the wheel company up again, I hired Chuck Blaney, who worked for me at Boyd's, and then Bill, and got them in at US Wheel. And then when I ended my deal with US Wheel and Boyd and I were teaming up, I hired Bill to be my head of sales and brought him in at my place. And then later on, he went back to work for, after, this was way a year or so after Boyd died, and I was doing my own manufacturing again. Bill went back to work for Colorado Custom. They made him an offer.
And now, do you know what Bill does now? You probably do, don't you?
No, I haven't seen him or heard from him in years.
Asheville, North Carolina. He got married, moved out there, runs a campground.
Oh, okay.
Loves it. I mean, beautiful, beautiful area over there.
Yeah.
And it's been a couple years since we've seen him. I don't know if I've seen him since the floods, because that area, I don't know if his campground got flooded. But it's like a KOA over there in Asheville, North Carolina. Well, we ran into him at like a NASCAR race. Some weird.
It was weird.
He was sitting in the stands up behind us, and he hollered at us. And yeah, it was some weird random automotive race someplace. I don't remember where it was, but yeah.
Well, Bill changed a lot, and I think his whole lifestyle when his son passed away.
Yeah, which was also an amazing BMX freestyle rider,
dirt jumper.
Yes. Yeah, amazing. But yeah, and got remarried. And what did you say?
We were at Bristol for our anniversary that year.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, he's been over there. Man,
he's been there a while.
Long time.
Yeah, 12.
Oh, 10, longer than that.
12, 15. Yeah, a long time. But yeah, loves it over there. Yeah.
I can't believe how fast time goes. I'll be saying something. That was a couple years ago, and they'll go, no, try 10 years ago. I'm like,
Yeah, we do the same.
Yeah, I'm one of those. I think the 80s is 20 years ago. No, it's not.
I know. Rick, who works for me, he tells me all the time, he goes, "You're living in the 80s, Brad." I go, "Yeah, I know."
We still, we're still around the BMX world, as we talked earlier. We still sponsor BMX kids, and Lily, our badass racer, she is now 21, 22, 21. 22. And her parents are the same age as us. And we're talking about movies. Like, she was here, she was cooking something, and she watched Netflix on her phone all the time, and she was watching the series of Teen Wolf.
Oh.
And I go, "Have you seen the movie?" She's like, "There was a movie?" And I telling her, and she goes, "You telling me stories about the 1900s again?" And she wasn't, she's born in the 2000s.
Back in the old days.
Oh yeah, we're from the 1900s. When Carrie hurt herself on the bike a couple of years ago, she wore a shirt that said, "Be patient with me, I'm from the 1900s," and it had like a covered wagon on it. Yeah.
It's when you see those things online that say, "Oh, 1984 was longer ago than it was from,"
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. Dude, like, how is that possible?
Yeah.
So you're still running Bond Speed Wheels. So how many years now has it been since you've been running the wheel company?
Started the wheel company. Well, I took it back over and have been running it since 2006. And prior to that, it was licensed and manufactured by U.S. Wheel, but we've been doing it since 2006.
20 years now, dude.
I know. And it's still going strong. We're all American built wheels, all our aluminum, all of our hubs. I mean, our hoops are all American sourced, and we manufacture everything in Anaheim. Good and bad about that, but but I always say that because there's so much now online about, who's making what overseas, and, companies that are calling their stuff American made, but all they do is assemble it here and stuff like that,
So that's another story I tell often. One of the first times I flew to Southern California, you had Bond Speed Wheels at that time. And I was flying out there, I think for the Roadster show early on when it was down there. And I reached out to you and I was like, "Hey, I'm coming in and I want to come by the shop." And you're like, and I go, "I'm flying in." I forget even which airport I flew in. And at this time, and you're like, "No." I'm like, "What? I can't come by?" And you're like, "You can't physically do that in one day because there's traffic out here." Because you laughed at me. I was still living in Illinois. I'm like you going from Omaha out there. And it's like, "You can't physically do what you want to do." He says, I go, "But it's like this far on the map." And it's like,
it's not far on the map.
It's 3.5 hours sitting going 5 mile an hour. I'm like, "Oh, okay." So yeah, I didn't come. So you're like, "You can't do that." So
it's funny. People all the time, they'll say, "Hey, can I want to shoot down? Where are you at?" "Oh, I'm in Chatsworth." I go, "There's no way you're going to make it." It's just...
So you being a Southern California guy, I did this trip 2 years ago. People can't believe me if they live in Southern California. I flew out the weekend before SEMA for a day and a half extra. I was hosting the roast for Von Hot Rod's birthday party. He lives not far from the Ontario airport, so clear out there. So I flew in. I've got a room close to the Ontario airport. So, but I fly in and I instantly go to Hollywood Hot Rods in Burbank.
That's a ways.
I go to Troy Ladd's, and he goes, "You got to go to the Peterson Museum. I think you can make it go this route." So I made it to Peterson, kind of ran through it, went to the vault. I've never been in the vault. I've been to the Peterson, but never been in the basement. And went through that. Then that night I went back out to my hotel at Ontario. I'm talking to Troy. He's like, "Oh, if you can do this, do this." And I had an appointment with Dave Shutton at Galpin in Van Nuys at like 1:00 in the afternoon the next day. But that next morning in Donut Derelicts is in
Huntington Beach.
Mm-hmm.
Had it, and Troy's like, "Get up, leave your hotel at like 4:30 in the morning. Get down there when it's still dark. Their cars will be there." So I went there. I went to Donut Derelicts. I'm by myself. All this stuff, I was by myself. I never stopped and ate. I had a donut at Donut Derelicts. I had beef jerky whenever I needed gas. And when the roads were open, I was driving 90 mile an hour when it was allowing me. And then I met Hothead Lou there, and he's like, "Oh man, you got to go to the Lions Museum." Because he goes, "Go up this route." These people were helping me miss the traffic. And he goes, "The Lions Museum opens at 9, 10 o'clock." So I was there when they opened. Ran through the Lions Museum, made friends with people, got a tour of the body shop, the restoration shop. But that place blew my mind. It's way bigger than I thought it was.
Our old painter works there, Greg Morrell, who I was talking about.
He was gone there that day. He was gone there that day. I would have loved to meet him. I met him years ago. And then I went someplace else that I can't remember. And then I made it up to Dave Shutton's place at 1:00. Went through all their stuff. And then he goes, "Oh, you got to go to the Valley Relics Museum because there's some BMX stuff there." And then this is the one that nobody believes I could do in the traffic. I kept looking at my traffic app, see if I could make there in the traffic, because I had to be back Ontario, showered and changed at 6:00 that night. I made it to Stropes up in Simi Valley to see his shop the first time, see all this BMX stuff, and then drove 90 miles
way
an hour.
The hell out there.
That was the one. And he's like, "Well, okay, I'll make sure you leave by whatever." And then we got to talking. I kept hitting the app, and he goes, "You need to go now because the traffic's slowing down." I made it, showered, and I got to Vaughn's at 3 minutes after 6. But that's when everybody's like, "Hey,
I underestimated you, Tim. You could have made it that day."
But if I would have had one more person, that's one more longer pee break. That's one more person getting snacks. It's like I wouldn't have been able to make it to Strope. Yep. But I was at Stropes at I felt like Clark Griswold. Okay, on to the next thing. Oh, okay, I was at Strope for 40 minutes. And can you imagine having a short BMX conversation with Strope for 40 minutes?
No, you can't have a short conversation about anything with Strope.
Yeah, but I made it there. So, yeah, that's
crazy.
Fun.
That is, because people just don't understand it, because you can leave one day and go one place, and it takes you nothing to get there. Go exactly the same place the next day, and it takes you 3 hours to get there. You just don't know out here. It's crazy.
We bounce around. I come into the Roadster show early, and me and my buddy Noel, we bounce around, do some couple other things, and some open houses. And there's a small chance, and he's like, "It's an hour drive that I might, because they might be loading cars up, I might be able to see Fat Jack's old shop when I get out there."
Yeah.
So I hope to see that.
So you're coming out for the Grand National Road Show this year?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Noon on Friday. I'm doing a panel. I'm moderating a panel with Chip, Dave Merrick, Jimmy Shine, Rick Love, and Bogey about careers in hot rod building and custom cars and stuff like that. So
cool.
Around will be.
I usually hit those when I'm there. So okay, you're doing all of this stuff. You're doing the wheel company. Let's talk. Then you did some TV in there.
Yes.
It was the same time I was doing Search and Restore, because the producers tried to hire me away from my second season to be on second season of Car Warriors.
Uh-huh.
And did you do both seasons of Car Warriors?
I just did the second season.
Okay.
And we they called me. I went in and they they told me about the show, and I said, yeah, no problem. I can do this. And they, you go through the whole rigmarole and everything. And they later told me that they almost didn't hire me because I was too clean cut. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And
I kind of forget who all was on that.
Jimmy Shine, myself,
okay.
and
was you one team leader and Jimmy was the other team leader? Is that what that was?
I was a technical host, and Jimmy was the color host, and then we had Ray, and I can't remember Ray's last name for some reason, but Ray was the other technical host. And so what we would do is you've got the premise of the show was, first of all, it was not fake. You always hear about fake TV hours and all that. What had happened in the first season was one of the teams sued the production company saying they were ripped off, blah, 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 blah. And because of that, they had to go by standards and practices. And what that means is you have an attorney that is on premises during the whole thing. And like one time, so the premise of the show was you have two teams, choose the cars at random, you flip a coin, they each get one of the cars, and they can choose whatever they want to do to it. We had a whole parts room, we had 2 spray booths, and they could do anything they wanted to the car, but it had to be built in 48 hours. At the end of the 48 hours, tools down, and the next day, the car went to the drag strip and to the slalom course. So it was judged on appearance, modifications, and performance.
If it stayed together.
Well, no, that was the other thing. We actually, the reason it was the following day was when we got done, the car immediately, everybody left, and we had a group of certified ASC mechanics, 3 on each car that went front to back.
Make sure the cotter pins were in.
Oh my God, some of the stuff that was done on those cars. I was working on one car one week, and what our job was to consult the teams, help them along, be technical advisors, talk to the camera about, okay, here's what they're doing now, and explain it to the audience. But the other thing was to literally make sure that at the end of the 48 hours, those cars ran. So, if they screwed something up, I had to fix it.
Didn't each team have a budget? Or
no, they had a parts
I remember them going into they went into a holding room with the parts. Oh, I want this and this. And then didn't they have a certain amount of time to get that, or I don't understand.
What happened was there was an engine challenge. Whoever pulled the engine the fastest and put it in the box, they got to go to the parts room first.
Okay.
And then it was free for all after that. And
that's the part I enjoyed the most of watching that show was them, the people going in and grabbing the stuff,
because they had 2 minutes.
Grocery store games. It's who can put in the best groceries in the amount of time or something.
Exactly. But I mean, some of the stuff we saw, one time I walk around the back of a car and I look up, it's up on the rack, and I go, you guys, we've got 5 minutes. You got to get this gas tank in. And they're like, what are you talking about? It's in. And I go, no. I look up. They had 6 zip ties on each bolt hole. They thought that was their shortcut. And I said, you know how much gas weighs? And so that was where we had to jump in because they were trying to do something else. So, one time Jimmy and they had put in an LS motor, and it had an electric fuel pump, and they never hooked up the fuel pump. And there was 15 minutes to go, and Jimmy and I had to slide under the car, and we can't see. We're trying to wire this thing, without seeing, and, Jimmy, go up, hit the button, and then, it's still not, and because it literally had to be done in 48 hours. And where the attorneys would come in, the way it worked because of the previous season's lawsuit was one time the spray booth on the one team, it quit working. So what they had to do is they'd sound a horn. Everybody had to stop what they were doing, no matter what they were doing, walk out, and literally get in a row, us included, and they would go, okay, red team, you understand that the clock has been stopped and there's no deficit. Everybody has to stop. And when the clock resumes, then you can go back right where you were. And they go, no, you physically have to shake your heads yes, so we see it on video. And then they would go, blue team, do you understand? All that rigmarole. And it happened once in a while. Something would break that, if it was something like a floor jack didn't work or something, that was just luck of the draw. But if it was something major, then we had to go through that. And it was fun. And I remember these guys, because you worked 48. First of all, you were on set for like 6 hours. You know this, Tim, doing all the openings and all the introductions and all the team stuff. So we're there for 6 hours. We'd get a break. Then the clock started, and you worked 48 hours straight through. And then at the end, we had to do, the guys all went back to the hotel, but Jimmy, Ray, and I, we had to stay and talk to the tech teams. We had to do the outros. We had to go in the back and do the sit downs with the camera crew and
more TV stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we would go back and sleep. And I can remember coming back and they always asked us to do close-ups when our eyelids are like, or when our eyes are like 3 days. We have black eyes, but we would come back. And I remember the guys when it was all over and whoever won. And the way it worked was the team got to keep their car and they won the competitor's car. And so we'd be standing there and they'd go, now, how many weeks do you get off before you got to do this again? I go, what do you mean? We get Saturday and Sunday off, and then we come back and start over again. And they're like, how the hell do you do that? And I remember
I did my show. We had 4 weeks to build, and each week got a half-hour episode or hour episode.
There's a kitty.
Hour, I think. But I was 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off to organize, clean. Then I'd come back to my shop, and then 2 weeks on again.
Yeah, people forget we have our own businesses.
The other Power Block hosts, they'd shut down, or we're doing a 4-wheel drive build, so Ian Johnson would come and help me. Or we're doing a truck, so Kevin and Ryan, the truck guys would come and help me. But then each week we had between 7 and 12 fresh people. Like, oh, we're doing metal work this week. I got my buddies that are awesome, no drama. It took a lot of planning, but I got to pick all the people that got to be on there.
Yeah.
But there was always a couple every week that were like phone-ins or had rode in.
Yeah, and some worked and some didn't. And one of my friends and one of the ones that the TV picked, they cried and went home. Like a couple guys cried off camera in the corner. I think
we had guys like that too that were like, how do they expect us to do this? What do you mean? Yeah. I'm like, hey man, that's what it is,
I think I'm too old to do that again now.
Oh, for sure.
All these years later, I don't want to do those 18-hour days anymore. Yeah.
Try 48 hours straight, pal.
Yeah.
You find very creative.
We had a couple all-nighters and stuff, but yeah, not.
You find
but it was like,
Go ahead.
I'm painting tonight with me and 2 other the painter guys, and so the camera guys would go home, and I finally learned how to do. Okay, I'm setting the GoPros up. Just make sure you pull the GoPros out before you turn the bake booth on. So they would, I learned how to do that too. So
well, you'd find creative ways to get a couple winks in here and there, and the guys who were cast, they had a room that was all cameraed up. They could go to get a little sleep on a couch or whatever, but we didn't really. We had a break room with our hospitality area and stuff like that, but no place to really sleep. And it was cold as hell in there because we were in a tent in a parking lot, basically,
Oh, okay.
And so I was one night, I was like, I am so tired. I'm so freaking cold. And I go, wait a minute. We got heated paint booths. And when the guys were in the booth, there was nothing else to do because they're in there spraying the car, there was nothing else you could be doing. And so I said, wait a minute. I walk around the back of spray booth, and there's the big box that's the heater, and it's about 4 foot long. So I curl up on that thing, take my boots off, and I curl up on it. It's like a big warm box, and I go to sleep. Next thing I know, Brad, is everything okay? Paramedics are there. One of the guys walked around the corner and said, "I think Brad collapsed. He's in the back." and I'm like, "Do you think I took my boots off before I collapsed?" No, this is just a nice warm space that I found, you know. And then the other thing I did is, like you were saying, Tim, we're still running our businesses, right? So I've got a wheel company and a watch company to run, and we are not allowed to have phones on set.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't listen to that. I would turn mine off, put it in my pocket, and then right when the guys were running to that tool room that you were talking about to get all their parts, I'd walk over to my toolbox, open the top drawer, and I'd put my phone in it. And then when, 3 in the morning or 2 in the morning or whatever, I could go do a bunch of texts or something like that, or if there was an emergency or something like that, I'd walk around the back of the spray booth and okay, I only got 2 minutes, man. They're gonna catch me. And it was fun times. It was fun times.
So we kind of glossed over. Let's go back to the watch company a little bit.
Okay.
So how did you think I want to do a watch? What was the thought process behind that?
Well, what a lot of people don't know is my great-great-grandmother was from the Breitling family, like Breitling watches.
Oh,
and
okay.
I've always loved watches. And I have a huge collection of antique watches and America used to be a huge watchmaker. We had factories that built Elgins and, things like that. And so I've got a big collection of American classic watches and then some Swiss and stuff like that. But so after Boyd's, when I couldn't be in the automotive industry, I was trying to think, what's my next thing past cars? And it was watches. And so I started sketching some ideas and what I would want to do if I did my own watch and things like that. And then after I did my little chicken scratches, which is something that Boyd and I used to always say, we'd say we're conceptual designers, but we needed somebody like a Chip or a Desmond or somebody like that to take our ideas, because we used to stand there and say, okay, no, move the windshield back a little bit more, or 6 degrees or 2 degrees or whatever, and drive them nuts, and did the same thing with the watches. And I got Desmond and Mike Desmond and gave him all my ideas, and then he put his 2 cents in, and I went over to Switzerland. I had done a ton of research, and everybody told me that nobody's going to work with you because they hate Americans, because Americans come over and the very first thing that they do is they come over and they go, you see this watch right here? I want to do one like this, but I want it to say Bond speed, and that's what we were known for, is just wanting to rip somebody's design off. But I had 2 things going for me when I met with the number 1 factory in Switzerland. Is they were number 1. I had original designs, that stuff that they had never seen before. But number 2, when I toured their factory, their machines were the exact same machines we used at the wheel factory. They were smaller. You think of a wheel CNC about the size of a Volkswagen. These were about the size of a little box, and so I knew how to do certain things, and I actually taught them certain things, like one of the things I learned from Little John Butera about using a certain machining tool and back dragging so you'd open up the grain, or doing things like that. And so when I talked to him, they were like, wait a minute, this guy's different. He knows he's not just, and we were also able to get 3 international patents on watches. And when you think about how long watches have been around, our very first model, we were able to get 3 patents. That was, made a big difference with the Swiss also, because they knew we were serious. And
you come out with, didn't you mostly have 3 styles of the watches?
The Bonneville line, we came out with 3 styles. and the very first one, our 1248 chronograph, was voted one of the 10 best watches in the world by Robb Report, and then it became the official watch of the Saudi royal family. And
that's the one I don't have. That's the one Larry Dixon rubs in, that he has that watch.
He has a very special one too, because his back rotor, we did a special rotor. When you take it off and look at the back through the glass, it says 3-time world champion. So, we did special rotors for him. So
I have the Art Deco one, and I wore the hell out of that thing.
Is that a gearbox, you mean?
Yeah.
Is it a Bonneville?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the curved back gearbox.
And then I have, sitting here, because you used to sell some trinkets and stuff. I have, wait for the camera to adjust.
Oh, the box. That is the billet box that the gearboxes came in.
Yeah.
They were in a leather pouch. And then
this is when you were doing some of your selling and auction stuff there with all your collectibles. And
when I did my Wins Brad stuff.
Yeah, it's faded a little bit, so I got a good deal on it, but it's like a billet standing block is what it looks
there you go. Yeah. Those were really cool. Only the first 100 watches came in those. And then the other one, and then I did some that were a little longer, and they were lined with wood, and they were cigar boxes, because back then cigars were all the rage, and they were a 3 cigar box, and people liked those, but we made I think 20 of them. That's all we ever did.
Carrie, you were not Carrie's favorite person when you used to do those Win Brad stuff thing. I was like, you got to PayPal Brad some more money. I bought some more crap from him. So
I'm like, great. What
we
are we
had
going
fun
to do
doing
with that?
those.
It's cool.
Yeah, but it's on my shelf up there. Right, it sits right next to a what's his name? They got paralyzed drag racing top fuel driver.
Daryl Gwynn.
Yeah, it's a Daryl Gwynn signed rod right there. That sits on
nice.
that shelf. Yeah.
Nice.
When was the last time that you dusted that shelf?
Hey, I'm not going to talk.
So every once in a while on your social media, you have some leftover watches. Are you doing now that you're bringing the Bond Speed clothing back? Are you producing more watches, or have you always done some watches every once in a while, or you just have some leftovers?
I have some leftovers. The watch business really got hurt for us. It was a phenomenal business. We did great business, and but when
how do you get in to be the official watch of
the Saudi royal family?
Yeah. How does that happen?
We would do the show. I would take all my sales guys over, and this is what people don't understand. This is why I'm not doing watches anymore, because watches, I always say, are like the cosmetics industry or something like that. You have to front load it with cubic dollars to get brand recognition, get people to know you. I mean, and this is back when I started that company. It was back when magazines were still big. We had ads in Men's Journal, GQ, every men's magazine. We used to be in Good Guys. We used to be, everywhere. But we were also doing every major trade show. We did the Las Vegas Jewelry Show. We did the New York Jewelry Show, the Orlando Jewelry Show. We did the Hong Kong Watch and Jewelry Show. But the big one was the what was called the Basel Watch and Jewelry Show in Basel, Switzerland. And I always say to people, do you remember Bob from Ford? Okay. So Bob was in charge of all Ford's trade shows, and I used to tell Bob, I go, Bob, if you saw my booth in Switzerland, you'd be like blown away. And he goes, I've been to every major trade show, CES. I go, no. You've never been to a trade show like the Basel Watch and Jewelry Show. I said, if I brought my booth from Switzerland and put it on the floor of SEMA, I said, everybody'd be standing there going, what the hell? And I said, and my booth over there is nothing. It's like a gnat. And so he was so intrigued that him and his 2 assistants, they flew over to Basel that year to see. And he goes, I thought you were kidding. Our booth there was 40 by 40, which is not huge, that big, but it was 2 stories. We had a curved staircase that went to the upstairs level, and those were meeting rooms where we would sit down with people. Downstairs, we had these huge glass cabinets and solid wood floors. The outside of the booth, when I designed it, it was all chrome plated steel girder with like aluminum, like flat aluminum with ribs in it on the outside, and then giant billboards on every side that had these like lifestyle things, a watch with
you need to post a picture of some of your booths on your social media.
And we did all this, and we were like one of the smaller booths, like Rolex and Patek Philippe. They had crazy booths. Like I would go over to see people that I knew, and the booths were massive, and they don't have drayage charges over there. And for those who don't know what drayage, if you ever done a trade show booth, they weigh everything in and they charge you by the pound. They don't have that over there. So like Breitling, their booth is 4 stories tall. They have every year it's what full-size plane are they going to hang from the inside of the booth.
Oh, wow.
And they all have full kitchens. And when I say a full kitchen, I don't mean a catering kitchen where they warm stuff up. They actually have chefs cooking back there. And when you go in, like one year we went there and we had carbon fiber Bonneville watch pens that were really nice. They were in these really trick aluminum boxes and everything. We thought, this is so cool. And this one editor that I knew who was really friendly with us, did all kinds of stuff for us. He came over and I go, Keith, what do you think of the pen, man? It's solid, real carbon fiber. It's stainless steel. It's blah, blah, blah. And he goes, oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And I go, yeah. I said, we really tried to up it this year. And he goes, I hate to tell you this, Brad. And he reaches down and he goes, I just came from Cartier. And he's got like $1,000 pair of solid gold Cartier sunglasses. And that's what they were giving out to press. And I'm like, oh, great. Okay. Well, our little carbon fiber pen's nothing now. But
I still have one that you used to give at SEMA, the cheaper pens, the red triangle shaped pens.
Oh yeah.
I still have that on my desk in my shop.
Oh, cool.
Unfortunately, I should ask for a refill because it's out of ink.
Well, geez.
The ink seriously lasted.
Run out of ink.
I mean, that party was like, you were giving them out at the party that year was it the Hard Rock that you did your party?
The Bond Speed Bash at the Hard Rock, yeah.
Yeah, I still have a framed picture from that night that we had a group that it's getting faded. It was you in the picture, me, Michael Anthony, Rick Dorr, Troy Trepanier, Larry Dixon. I want to say Dean from Sport Trucks by Dean, maybe?
We were just talking about him.
Hills Hot Rods.
No. BMX.
Strope. Oh, Strope was in there. Yeah.
Strope was there. Yeah.
And I want to say Bobby Alloways might be in that picture too. Yeah.
Bobby was there. Yep.
Yeah, but that was a small group. You're like, let's grab a picture, and seen it and blew it up, and it's been framed in my shop. So. Yeah.
And we always joke, we're like, look, Tim photobombed him.
Yeah. Everybody thinks, did you get photoshopped into that? Yeah.
That was fun times, and yeah. So then we started the Bond Speed watch line, which was lower price because the Bonneville watches went from back then they went from 2,500 to 50,000, and then the Bond Speed started at 175 and went to like 495, and the Camber was our huge seller that practically everybody in the hot rod world had a Camber at one time or another. And we also sold. We did a BMW approached us about the Camber and wanted to make it a BMW watch.
It's in the cupboard in there.
Yeah, I need it.
And their initial order was like 10,000 watches, and I was like, oh yeah, we can help you with that.
Is there any warnings on mine? I think the chrome's peeling on mine.
It's don't sweat. Don't sweat.
But how old is that one? Because I got it.
That watch is probably 20 years old.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we're still living in Illinois. We've been in Tennessee now 15 years. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I know we get people call all the time, and they'll go, "Hey, man, this happened." I go, "Excuse me, but we haven't made that watch for 15 years, and you probably haven't."
But now I don't wear a watch because I look at the clock on my phone.
I know, but I still wear a watch. I mean,
Yeah, there's certain people that are.
I look at it and I go like this. But my arm's not long enough anymore, to keep pushing it out to read it.
We gotta make that bigger. Yeah.
But
so when did the watch industry die? Or go down?
It was the
when smartwatches came or phones?
It was the Gulf War. Because we had invested so many millions of dollars in marketing and building it, and our real market was not here in the United States. Our real market was in the Middle East, and you asked me how we hooked up with the Saudi royal family. See, we're very scattered. And Asia. And when we went to war with the Middle East, it kind of killed that market. And we thought, well, this is going to be short-lived, and it never came back. And to reinvest all those millions again didn't make sense,
Mm-hmm.
But the way we had our booth at the Swiss show, and one day this giant guy comes in, and from a movie, black tie, white shirt, black suit, and he comes in and he says, "Who's in charge?" And somebody comes and gets me, and I come walking over. "How can I help you?" And he goes, I think he's like a watch buyer, just some. And he goes, "We'd like to clear the booth." And I go, "Well, what's wrong?" I'm thinking there's some emergency or something. He goes, "The Crown Prince would like to visit your booth," and I'm like, I'm thinking in my head, I just sat this guy down from Tourneau, who was a big customer of ours, and I go, and he looks up and he goes, "Brad, if the Saudi royal crown prince wants," he goes, "I'll come back." And I said, "Really? You don't mind?" He goes, "No, I don't mind." And so he left. They cleared the booth. Guys stood around every entrance of the booth, and we showed him the line. And he goes, "Thank you." And he left. And later that day, somebody from, his representative came by and said, "Yes, we would like to work with you." And so we worked with them, and that meant they wanted to place big orders. And but they had special demands where normally on our 1248s, our high-end watch, you flip it over, it has a glass back, and you see the rotor, and it normally says my signature and Michael Desmond's signature, and then it says Swiss made, and
or it says 3-time champion.
Yeah, or if you're Larry Dixon, it says 3-time champion. Well, they wanted the cross daggers, their royal crest on there. And we said, that's not a problem. We can do that. And then they wanted, our watches all come in a orange buffalo hide watch box, and they wanted in gold, they wanted the cross daggers embossed on the boxes. We said, you're ordering enough. We can do that. That's no problem. And then then you got a slip cover over that box, and then another box that went in, and it had a seal that held it shut. And they wanted those seals that hold it shut to be the cross daggers. And we were like, yeah, all that's doable, no problem at all. They placed huge orders, and we were getting down to production, and they said, okay, we will have a man come to your factory. And we were like, well, what's that for? And they go, to put the seals on the boxes. And we go, oh, we just send them over. We're happy to do that for you. You don't have to send anybody. And they went, oh, no. You're infidels. You don't touch the royal crest. It was okay for us to engrave it. It was okay for us to emboss it on the box. But the actual crest that was their seal, they actually had a guy stand there in the production room, and that was his entire job, to put those stickers on, and he was the one who got to touch them. Nobody else could touch them. And then they started ordering like $250,000 at a time in watches. And I asked the representative, I go, okay, I need to understand. I go, so where does the family have their watch stores? Just in Saudi Arabia or what? And they said, oh, no. They don't have any watch stores. These are party favors when they have dinner parties. And I'm like, oh. And that's what made our market. What started happening was the people would go to these parties, and you imagine you sit down, you're a special guest of the Saudi royal family, and they sitting in front of you is an open box that says Bonneville watches. Their watch is sitting there, and you go home, you're like, this must be the best watch in the world. It's the official watch of the Saudi royal family. And they would start going to their watch dealers and like that. And then watch dealers started calling us and saying, we want the same watch. We want to carry that watch. And then they would start asking for them to be diamond encrusted. And we did some in Dubai and United Arab Emirates where they had 10 carats of pave diamonds. And, not my style, but they were $50,000 a piece and they bought them like crazy. And what's weird is I have never seen another one since. I'm sure if I went to the Middle East somewhere, there's probably some, but I'm the owner of the company. I've never seen another one. And I was not allowed to keep one. Normally, I keep one of every watch. It's my wife wondering where I am.
Yeah, she's like, "Are you still,
I'm still talking to Tim and Carrie?"
Exactly. And so the I lost my train of thought. Oh, I wasn't allowed to keep one. Every other specialty watch that we ever did, we always kept one. And so I was always bummed about that because I had a complete collection of every watch we ever made. We did like America's Cup one year, and I had one of those. We were the official watch of Shelby. And when they had remember when they did the Series 1? We did those. And when Carol was doing the continuation cars, you could order if you had car XX whatever, then we would do it matching number on the watch. Series 1 the same way. And so we have one of all those. So one day years ago, some guy calls me and he says, "Hey, I got this watch at a party once." And I said, "Okay." And as I'm talking to him, all of a sudden I realized this is some oil executive got one of our watches. And he goes, "I've never really liked the red dial. You just got what they gave you. Some people got a gold one, some got a silver." And he goes, "Is there any way I could exchange it?" And I go, "You bet you could. What color you want?" And
right.
And that's how I got one. And I finally got one in my collection, which was something good for me. I really like that.
Wow.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's how I got into the watch industry.
Yeah, I've always wondered that. It's cool. And yeah, Larry has rubbed it in a few times. That he's
about every time we get together.
He hasn't called my watch the peasant watch, but I know the look that he's given me. Yeah.
Hey, I will tell you, Tim, Don Perdome, when I sponsored Don's entire team and, both his funny cars and his Top Fuel dragster, and Don could choose any watch he wanted, that's the one he chose. And then when he wore his out because he spilt nitro on it, he did all kinds of stuff. Yeah. And he came back and goes, "Can I get another one of those?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And that's the one he wanted. He loved that watch. So Don wore that watch, and Robbie Gordon wore a 1248 racing his Indy car. And what I was always amazed is Larry, against my better judgment, he would wear it while he raced. And I always thought, all that vibration in an automatic watch, because Rolex tells you not to really wear it while you're swinging a golf club, and he's in there in a Top Fuel dragster.
Right.
Yeah.
But it always made it. Now, he did one time ruin a watch. He rested his hand on the magneto, and it took and magnetized it, and it would never work again. So, and it's and like other stories about the watch company is like certain, like Jesse, he ordered a watch when at the height of all his stuff, and he ordered serial number 69, and he asked for that one, and I have it in my safe because he was going to work one day, and he put it on, and he used to wear it like a bracelet. He had me oversize it and wear it real loose and hanging down on his hand like a bracelet. And he said he pulled one of his bikes out. He went to adjust something, and it must have slid off his hand. And then he got in his car to go to lunch, and he ran it over. And it was still running. It was still good, but he totally tweaked the bracelet and, everything. But he didn't even break the crystal. But so I gave him a new one and kept the other one. It's still in my in my collection there. But so it's fun stuff.
So we've run long here. I knew this was going to be
real long. Yeah.
So touch real quick on. I did some SEMA builds for the OEMs, the program cars and stuff, and you did quite a few of those too back in that. That was the SEMA heyday too.
Yeah, after Boyd's, I had a lot of people that said to me, there were certain people that knew my abilities, like Bobby Alloway and Pete Shaporis and a lot of guys that knew me and knew what I contributed and what I did, because I was never hands-on at Boyd's. I was always running the business, but I would contribute to, hey, how should we name it? How should we paint it? How should we, or I would go in and go, hey, what about this? And they'd sometimes listen to me and sometimes get out of here, but the thing is I felt like I wanted to kind of show that I could build a car just as good as everybody else. And so I started building some of my own hot rods. And then also when that whole big thing was going on where all the car companies were wanting stuff to be built, threw my hat in the ring. And the first couple I didn't get. I reached out to GM, tried to get maybe I'm kind of glad I didn't get a couple of them, because I tried to get one of those Pontiac Vibes, and didn't get
first
that
GM,
one.
We did a Cavalier.
Did you? Okay, yeah. And then I tried to get one of those. What was the retro looking
HHR?
The what?
The HHR?
Like the HHR, but Chrysler's version of it. The PT Cruiser.
Yeah.
I was supposed to get a PT Cruiser, and the deal fell through at the last minute. They gave it to somebody else. And I was like, okay, I'm never going to get one of these cars. Then I talked to Mitsubishi, because all my contacts there, and I tried to get one of their trick little sports cars, and Desmond was working there, and we almost got it, but it didn't make it through accounting. We're not going to give this guy a car, and so then Ford called me, and they said, how would you like to do a Thunderbird for us? And I said, I would love to. And that was the year they gave one to Bobby Alloway, one to Roy Brizio, one to me, and one to Chip. And asked us all to do.
Bobby got one, yeah.
Yeah. And they asked us all to do our take on what we would do with the Thunderbird. And they shared with us that the Thunderbird was skewing at dealerships to women. Men were kind of looking at it as not macho enough, not cool enough. And so they said, just make it look cool. And so I remember, here you are, you got Bobby and you got Roy and you got Chip. And I remember the designers from Ford coming out the first time, and they were like, totally like, yeah, we got to go to Brad's and see what he's doing. And they walked in my shop, and I got the car under the lights up on jack stands. And I already had a full clay nose and a full clay back, and the tonneau cover done in clay. And we were starting on the rockers, and they're like, "You're doing a full clay in your garage?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "What do you expect us to do?" And we did that, and Bob Adams called me, and he goes, when he saw the car, and he was like, "Oh my God, your car is phenomenal." And he goes, "We're going to have a real issue here." And I go, "Why is that?" And he goes, "Well, because we saw Chip's car early on, and we asked him to be in the booth as the feature car because it was so great." And he goes, "I'll just be honest with you. Nobody really knew what you were going to do with it." And so we were told that our car would be at the front entrance where everybody came in the first day. And we were right where you go from that one hall up to where Ford used to be, and our car was just sitting there against the wall. And we ended up winning Best of Show. And they actually came up with 2 awards. Chip got Best of Show in the Ford booth. We got Best of Show in the whole show. And I was like, oh man, this is awesome. And so then of course the next year we got the Ford truck and we got on the turntable, and that was crazy because they asked me what I wanted to do. And I said, well, what do you guys need to push? And they go, well, we've got the new Ford GT coming out. And I was like, oh, really? And they go, no, you're not getting one of those. You know, I'm like, okay, could try, And
we asked, so I'm just going to tell
yeah.
you.
And they go, we have the new Ford F-150. We'd really like you to do one of those. And so Chip got one that year. SoCal Speed Shop got one that year. We got one, and some of the other guys got them. And I was kind of thinking, what am I going to do with this thing? And I pitched them on back half in the chassis and asking if they could get me out of like the proving grounds or something. You know how the Navigators had independent suspension? And I said, if you can cut a chassis off of an old junk test car, we'll, and so we back half the chassis, put a Lincoln Navigator rear suspension under it. And we literally touched every single panel on that. We did a whole new front fascia, did the back bumper out of steel, and did a full underbelly. And then that's when I got lucky. When they saw the truck and where we were going with it, they said, what would you think about putting a Ford GT drivetrain in it? And I said, well, that'd be cool, but doesn't the Ford GT, it sits in the back? And they go, well, it's not a problem. It'll still, we can give you one that's set up to be. So they sent me in a crate, a Roush prepped brand new Ford GT motor and a brand new Tremec. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever, till I realized that these trucks don't come with manual transmissions, and I had to create all of the linkages, all of the, we had to create a shifter handle, everything. But we got it done, and I remember that they, how these new cars, either the chassis talks to the motor or the motor talks to the chassis. Well, they were directly opposite. I can't remember which was which, but one of them talked to the chassis. The motor talked to the chassis in the Ford truck, and in the GT, it talked the other way. And so literally we had to pull every wire out of the truck and rewire it like a hot rod, No. And so we did all that and couldn't get it to run. We could not get that thing to run. And they sent me this a brain for the truck that was what they call a blank one, and I had to sign a legal thing because apparently you could take it and plug it into any Mustang or Ford GT and the car would start up because it was blank. And it was a development one, and I had to sign all this legal stuff. It still wouldn't work. We couldn't get it. And they said, well, just push it in and we'll have an engineer help you after. And I'm like, you know how it is, Tim. You don't want to bring a car that doesn't want to run if you can help it,
Yeah.
And
we've taken a few pushers to SEMA.
What's that?
We've taken a few pushers.
Oh, yeah, I have too. You don't want to, but you do. And luckily, I'd been working with Celine. And Celine had some proprietary thing that they're the only builder that Ford had given them. And they had, you ever seen those cool, look like clipboards that are electronic that you see like the F1 teams working or the Indy teams, and they're sitting there programming the motor on the fly and everything. They had all that kind of stuff that Ford had given them. And Steve's personal Mustang had gotten totaled by an employee like the week before. Pulled the brain out of that, plugged it in, sent a guy over at midnight on a Friday night. We had to have the car in Ford's booth on Sunday and standing there programming it like they do. And we got it running. It was one of those pop, 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 pops, but got it running, drove it in, and all the guys at Ford were like, how the hell did you do that? And Steve said, do not tell them because, I'm not supposed to let anybody else use this. And we got it on that, and it was fun. Then after that, we did Mustangs. One year we did a Jaguar, and that kind of stuff.
I miss those years. We did 12 vehicles like that. We never got to the level of the big, we did Cavalier, Malibu Max, Pontiac G5, Saturn Sky convertible, Ford Escape, Ford Transit van. I still have my Duramax, the last.
I was going to say, you still got your Duramax, don't you?
Yeah, it's got 200 and some thousand miles on it. I don't plan on ever getting rid of it. I'll put a motor in it someday.
I've got my one that I won the GM Design Award with, the last one that I did, the GMC, and it's got 130,000 miles on it. It's my daily driver. I love that thing,
Yeah.
you know?
I was talking to Rick Dorr last time I seen him, and I'm like, yeah, man. He goes, yeah, they were, short notice, all that, but he goes, man, I missed that. Every year we did 12 total. We had an 8-year run with GM every year. So, you get wheels and body kits, sound ground, repaint them, ground effects, stereos. So she had a cool new car to drive every year.
I know.
Now
It
she
was
has a Cadillac with 200,000 miles on it. I was like, man, I would love another one of them SEMA builds. Yeah.
I remember one year they asked me if I'd do the Pontiac Sunfire.
Mm-hmm.
And they told me, they go, we've got 300,000 Sunfires. Remember, every rental car company you went to had a Sunfire,
Mm-hmm.
and they said, we have 300,000 Sunfires coming off lease from the rental car companies, and they're going to be flooding dealer lots. We want something that shows up at the shows that kids will look at and go, whoa. And he goes, if they never do anything to them, and I said, yeah, I'll do one of those. And then I found out that they didn't have any in Arizona, Nevada, in California. And I go, I can't find one. You go, oh yeah, none of the dealers out there have them. Let us find you one in the Midwest. I'm like, find one in the Midwest. I was like, and so I called a buddy of mine up in Nebraska, and I said, do you have any of these on your lot? And he goes, yeah, I do. So we ended up getting it there, and I had to drive it all the way back. And I was like,
because GMs, you had to work with a dealership.
Yes.
Ford, you went to corporate and got them.
Yeah.
Like I had one of my best friends growing up, that I just talked to yesterday. He always worked at a Chevy dealership there in that era. So like when we did the Malibu Max, they didn't have one, and they kind of frowned upon doing dealer trades because there wasn't, money allocations and all of that. But my buddy just pulled some strings. He goes, "Oh, we'll take care of it," because he wanted that car to go to SEMA with their dealer license plate frame on it.
Of course, yeah.
The dealer traded Malibu Max for us that year. So
that was fun back then. That was really cool. And that was back when everybody was wanting to promote and be part of the cars, part of the builds. You could get the stereo involved.
Easy to get parts. And half of the ones we did were all BMX themed because we were taking them to the BMX races. So we got giant bikes because Heath Pinter worked there and got us bikes for the rack. And the Ford Transit Connect was in the Yakima bike rack booth, and Standard and Dan's Comp did a BMX bike for us. And we always use that because, in the marketing reports, it didn't have to be car events. It was where the consumers are.
Exactly. Yeah. It was, they want to sell cars. They don't care where, they want to sell cars.
BMX families. And if you can get them into a state fair in a vendor row of the state fair, you were almost guaranteed to get a truck. And it was.
Those were good back in the good old days.
Yeah, back in the 1900s. But now some of them companies don't even come to the SEMA show anymore.
No kidding. I know. But those were good times. So we built a lot of good stuff, and then build my own stuff. I got a '69 Camaro I'm working on right now, and my '67 Chevelle, and
you just recently brought back the Bond Speed clothing line.
Thank you for bringing that up. Bond Speed Streetwear. And we reintroduced a lot of the old designs, and we have new ones coming out. And for everybody who's into BMX,
I'm glad. I need to order some because apparently, I'm going to say the old shirt shrunk really bad. I'm not going to say I might be a bigger size than I was when the Bond Speed clothing line was out.
There's this really weird thing, Tim. After 4 or 5 years, they shrink. Yeah, I don't know what the deal is. Yeah,
or 15, or
But and we also have a Bond Speed Streetwear BMX division. We have a whole grouping of BMX shirts, and we're adding more. We're working on a bunch more, and so we got hats, sweatshirts, hoodies, stickers.
See, that's one thing that BMX don't have right now. Yeah, you can get some answer T-shirts, but it's just the logos.
Yeah,
and then you go and you get your national event shirt. Back then they had Airwalk had clothing lines, and Vision had, and there's Vans.
Everybody did. Haro had stuff. Everybody did.
BMX is still big, man. The Grands almost sets a record every year. It's still ridiculous. So and
we we're looking forward. Just trying to build it up. That's why you see so much online about Bond Speed Streetwear, because It's building it back up. A lot of people ask me to bring Vision Streetwear back, and I explained to them. I said, it's not mine anymore. I can't do that.
Yeah, it is out. They got an Instagram page, and you can buy the same shoe from back then. I keep wanting to buy a pair just because I had some back in the day. Um, but it's kind of their clothing isn't. It's a little more not really skate BMX. It's a little more what I would say urban.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah, and they're all into the music scene, and but it's the like electronic music scene and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'll tell you who's real authentic is actually of all places, China. The guy who has the license in China for Vision Streetwear is a real hardcore enthusiast, and he is on the Olympic Committee for skateboarding. He helps organize, and he's one of the announcers when they actually have the Olympics. And he's a really cool guy, and he is working on right now. They were just here. They flew over from China, and we spent a day together. They're working on a documentary for the 50th anniversary of Vision Streetwear. And they spent a day with me talking about all the riders, all the stuff. And I'm sharing a bunch of my BMX photography with them to put up, and some of the skaters that I have photography of. And then next year, they're flying myself, Brad Dorfman, and a bunch of the key individuals and guys like Gons and stuff over to China for the debut of the documentary and about the just the whole culture and everything. And it's going to be pretty cool. And then just the other day, have you seen that book, the history of freestyle, the big coffee table book? He's going to do a book on the 50th anniversary of Vision, but a huge section on BMX. And he just contacted me the other day.
That history of freestyle book is amazing. It sits by my chair in there, and I look through it. It's incredible what's in that book.
Yeah, and he's doing one now, and he asked me to be part of it. So that's going to be coming out too. So there's going to be a big resurgence. It's going to be really cool, I think. So
you're a big collector too. That's why, like, a lot of the stuff you were selling, or sometimes you see, or you just show on your social media. Oh, this, because like whenever you're going to these SEMA parties and stuff, there was either a free trinket, a pen, a hat, or a patch or something. And I'm guilty for that. I have a lot of cool stuff. And but yeah, you're a collector too. So you want to ask him your 2 questions that you have?
Okay.
Geez, you're finally going to let her ask a question?
I know, right?
Well, we need to wrap this up. We are officially, Brad. I told you.
Way over.
You're our longest one.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's not
the only one that made it right about this time was Jim Cozy.
Oh, okay.
Jim Cozy was our first almost 3 hours. So we've been 3 hours into this.
Yeah.
We didn't even talk about my electric bike company. We didn't talk.
Yeah,
right.
I know. There's
so
much.
We'll touch base on that. We'll ask him your questions.
Okay, so because I am in the events industry, my 2 questions are: what is your favorite, and it could be any type of event. What's your favorite event that you love to go to, and what is one event that you've never been to but's on your bucket list?
It doesn't have to be automotive related.
No, any event.
Well, it'll probably surprise you, but my favorite event that I've ever been to, that's a hard one because I've been to a lot of great stuff. I sure enjoy Monterey every year. And if you haven't ever got to go to Monterey Motor Week, it's nirvana. I mean, we have
not.
You got to go. Here's the biggest problem with it. It's gotten too expensive. When Charlotte and I started going 20 years ago, literally the first time, it was pretty cool. It was pretty quiet. You could get a hotel room. Now, the last time I went, I haven't been for 2 years. And the last time I went, I didn't pay for it because I was working for the BBC doing a show for them. But the Airbnb we stayed in was $10,000 a night.
Oh.
And
wow,
like stupid. And people do that all the time. And hotel
I've seen
rooms,
like Ring Brothers debuted a car at that Quail.
Yeah,
they
the
said
Quail
the
is
ticket
$3,000 a ticket.
Oh, I heard 1,200 or something like that.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's stupid. Now, on the good side of it, at the Quail, they bring in like 50 of the best wineries and chefs, and everything's free. So you can just go and sample from place to place. And and the people that are there and the cars that are there are just phenomenal. And nowadays there's so many major debuts there that it's spectacular. But you can go to auctions at night, all the big car auctions, and you can go to the races out at the track. You can go to the shows. Then they have fun things like the Concours d'Elegance, of course, we've always heard of, but they have the funny one that they have there. I'm trying to remember what they call it, the Concours de something, but it's like, I remember one of the cars I remember there, some guy had taken a 944, and that famous Porsche stripe down the side where it was just the lines with Porsche between. He had Porsche, and he had built like a deck, a wooden deck instead of a whale tail, and it said Porsche. And
it's almost like the car version of that Steve Carroll movie or whatever, Dinner with Schmucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who can bring the most ridiculous thing?
And so for a car guy, it's just phenomenal, and it's fun. And but the other types of things I'd like to go to is I would like to go down to Miami and go to the Basel Art Show one year. I've still never done that, and it's become something where like car companies are debuting stuff, but there's all this great art, and I love art. So I love art and design, and so that's a big one on my bucket list.
Awesome.
Cool. So touch base real quick on the electric bicycle company then.
Yeah.
I kind of forgot about that one too.
Well, back at the very beginning of the electric, when electric bikes weren't even the craze yet, I met a guy, and he was the brainiac when it comes to putting together all the electronics and the batteries and all that. And so I told him, I said, tell you what, he wanted to start an electric bike company, but he knew all the electronics. And I said, okay, I'll help you. So I said, tell you what, I will give you a place in my warehouse. I will pay for this and that, and give you a budget. And I said, but you got to learn and learn how to run a company, learn how to, do it. And we weren't doing this, buy a cruiser bike and put an electric motor on it. We actually built jigs and built our own frames, and we did them all right here. And I got a hold of my friends at Miller, and they set us up with a really nice, 1 MIG and 1 TIG. We got a plasma cutter, and we got one of their great welding tables. And so we did everything on the Miller stuff, and we built them. But he learned a lot as we went. But what we did is we built electric bikes that had motocross wheels, and we had them laced up special, and they were trick and had wide motorcycle wheels on them. We had a Springer front fork. And then what we did is we went to a company down the street because we wanted a cool center panel box to house the batteries. And we went to a company that makes, think of like your electric box on the back of your house. They make those. So we made them like that so that they kind of fold out and there's no piano hinge or anything. And did all of that stuff. And we got them, and I started contacting all my people and getting a hold of them. And we got in Auto Week, and we got in, USA, or not USA Today, but Wall Street Journal, and a lot of media places. Got them promoted, and all of a sudden we started getting orders, and we got orders from like Pirelli to be their pit bikes for their Formula One team. They ordered like 10 of them. And they were all Pirelli yellow with Pirelli up the side. Then we did some for Michelin. We did some for, we did a giveaway bike for Miller. And then my guy came to me and he said, hey, I got an idea. And I said, okay, what's your idea? And he said, right now we're limited. We have one battery. The bike goes 35 miles an hour and it only goes for this far. And I go, yeah. And he goes, and he starts talking all this stuff that way over my pay grade, and he's, if we do this circuit and do that circuit, we can do. He came up with a way to stack batteries so you could buy it with one battery and have a 35-mile-an-hour speed and a 100-mile range. Later on, you could add a second battery and it would go to 40 miles an hour and it would double the, or you could add a third battery. And with the third battery, you couldn't legally sell it as a bicycle because it would do 67 miles an hour. And, but Tim, if you don't cut the red wire, we put a limiter on it, and with a wink and a nod that if you don't cut the red wire, because if you cut that red wire, it would go 67 miles an hour. And, so guys would go, okay, and first thing they get home, they cut that red wire, even though we told them not to. Yeah. And we took it out on PCH and did a speed run one real early morning, and we got it up to 70 miles an hour. And it had motorcycle tires on it and everything, so it was very stable and everything. So we were just getting up and going. We were coming out with a second generation bike that was going to be about half the price, and it was going to be real nice. And we were starting to add kickers, their speakers, and we added those to the bars as an option. And we built a bracket where you put your iPhone there, and it would tell your speed. It would tell, and you could play through the speakers and have a great stereo and everything. And then a company up in Menlo Park, up in Northern California, contacted us and wanted to buy it out. And they didn't want to ever produce another bike, we found out later on. They wanted our patents. And they're using them now for electric motorcycles. And but we did good.
What was your bicycle company called? I forget the name of that.
It was called Mars Cycles.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And we did them for, I think 5 years, and then sold it, and on to the next thing. So
everything has a 5-year run, not only with you, like at Boyd's and stuff, but we just had Gary Case on here, and he ran Style and Concepts for 5 years. He did this magazine companies for 5 years. He ran this for 5. It's like when you build a business up, then you can sell it when it's big. That's the time to sell it.
Seems to be, if it doesn't happen in 5 years, it's probably not gonna. And I don't want to say that as a rule of thumb, but for me, it sure has been that way. It's been that 4 to 5 year range. You see the growth or you don't see the growth. So
yeah.
But
we didn't even talk about the crazy, speaking of speed things, of the GPV downhill bicycle thing. We'll have to talk about that. But yeah, people have to Google that. That was a crazy time in the BMX world. So I talked about you being there at the heyday of what I call the hot rodding and stuff. So behind you on the wall, there's a cool picture with the Smoothster on your shelf back there with Boyd and you. And how big was the heyday back then of the hot rodding? Boyd Coddington cars had a car on the cover of the Smithsonian.
Smithsonian.
Yeah.
Smithsonian. And this photo right here, it's one of my favorites. Can you see it? That was when we had just won the Grand National Roadster Show, and we got Boyd and me and our team. There's Chip. Gosh, everything's backwards. Chip behind me. Chip standing behind me along with the rest of the crew. And Gray Baskerville shot that. But there's another version of this photo where it's just Boyd and I, Chip standing at the back of the car, and Gray said, "Flip me off." And we're like, "What?" Yeah. He goes, "Flip me off." So all three of us are flipping him off, and he goes, That's because you guys are the best, and I love that photo. I got that one too.
I got a funny, real quick Smoothster story. That was a Fred Warren car. A few years ago when Fred decided to sell the car and two of his other ones, we know a collector that got them put in front of him. He went and looked at them, and he passed on the car, and they have hundreds of cars in their collection. And he goes, "Oh, it take too much money to put new wheels and put an LS in it." And I had a heart attack because he's not a street rod guy.
Yeah.
So he's like, "Why is this car so special? There's 100 of those that look the same." I go, "No, that was the car that inspired 3 fiberglass body companies. It was such a car, and diecast cars. I've got a Hot Wheels car sitting right over there of it. It's like." Yeah, he should. It was like, yeah.
God,
Yeah,
I'm glad he didn't get it if that's what he was going to do.
Yeah, I don't think he would have if he would have got it, but that was his selling point, and I still give him a hard time. It's like, well, he's a muscle car guy, so
yeah.
I mean, if you're a muscle, you're not. Some people aren't in all lanes, so. So tell everybody where they can find you on social. We are officially over, over 3 hours. So I know we could talk.
You're gonna have people falling asleep. They're gonna go, God, this guy.
Yeah. The good thing is they can pause it and come back to it when they.
There you go. There you go.
Larry Dixon's got to be almost this long too. We put it up in 2 parts, and we'll just put this. Nobody tunes in for part. I mean, they still did for him, but
it's better just let
it go, and he can come back and watch them.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, cool. Well, you can find me at Bradley_Fanshaw on Instagram. That's where I put a lot of my stuff up. You can also find us at Bond Speed Wheels on Instagram or Bond Speed Streetwear on Instagram. And please go check out our apparel at bondspeedstreetwear.com. You'll be pleasantly surprised. We have something for everyone. I mean, we have covered cool the car guy.
Some of the iconic stuff that sold like hotcakes that I wore out, shirts. And then you're coming out with some new stuff and BMX line. And I'm excited that you're bringing it back.
Cool.
I remember when you called me, when he called me, we were in Lincoln.
No.
Weren't we?
No, we were at SEMA because it was right after.
We hadn't left for SEMA yet. I don't know. We were someplace that you called.
We were in Denver.
Well, yeah, we were in Denver. We were on our long way to SEMA. And you're like, you see, I'm fine. And then I tried talking to you at SEMA and you were too busy. You were talking to Troy Trepanier and some, a couple more people.
Oh, come on now.
Well, that was the only time I seen you once at SEMA, real quick, and then
because
I was on to a meeting.
You were the big, I mean, you were hosting so many things, you didn't have time for me. I know. You know.
I get twitchy if I sit around, so keep me busy, keep me out of trouble. So I want to thank our great friend Brad Fanshaw for being a guest on the Strange Motion Way podcast. Give Charlotte a hug for us, and. Sorry if you might have to take dinner home. If she had dinner ready, you might have missed.
I know I'm probably in trouble, but that's all right.
Yeah. We're sorry.
You're used to it.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on. It's fun, and it's always fun to relive the good old days. But I always look forward to what's next.
Okay, so that's one question I forgot to ask.
Oh, geez.
It doesn't have to be a car, or you can say. We usually ask the car builders: is there one car that you'd still like to build for yourself or for a customer? But you're finishing your Chevelle, you could still have a car, or your question could say, oh, I've always wanted, you've been in the watch, you're doing the clothing, you're bringing back your clothing line. Oh, I might wanted to get in the helicopter business or something like that. So is there a car you'd like to build, and is there a different business that maybe you'd like to try yet?
A car I like to build is the one that's in bare metal in my shop right now that I keep pushing to the side, which is 69 Camaro. I've never done a 69 Camaro. And I bought that one, and it keeps getting pushed to the side. I want to finally get that done because I've always loved the 69 Camaro, but I've never done one. And until that car, I've never owned one. And I always look at them and just go, God, they're just such great-looking cars. Business-wise, I've been so fortunate to be able to do so many things and be successful in many of them. I've had my failures like everybody, but there's something that I'm toying around with right now, which is another apparel company, but it is not a like t-shirt company. And it's more of what you would call a fashion brand. And I'm working on that, and I'm still deciding what to do with it or if to do anything with it. Because I'd love to have.
just launched something like that at the SEMA show. He's got leather jackets now, and I don't know if it's a purse or a bowling ball bag or whatever, but he's creative like you are. That he can't sit still either.
Yeah. So. Always got to be thinking and doing. So that's kind of where I'm at. But cool. We'll see where it all goes, man.
Okay.
Awesome.
We're going to wrap this up. Thanks, Brad Fanshaw, for being a guest on the podcast.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, welders. Ready to upgrade your gear and save some serious dough in the process? The Miller Build with Blue Savings and Rebate Program has you covered. Find amazing deals and cashback rebates on a wide range of Miller products, from welders to plasma cutters and everything in between, all backed by our 3-year warranty. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. Take advantage of the Miller Build with Blue program now. Visit us online or stop by your nearest Miller distributor today to start saving.
The Strange Motion Way podcast, brought to you by
Royal Purple. Premium synthetic motor oils and high-performance chemicals have been designed to improve performance, provide long-term protection, and give you the confidence to push your vehicle to the limit. Royal Purple Premium Synthetic Motor Oils.